Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the What If Guy, back with another fanfiction. This is the first part of What If Issei joined the Dragon Emperor Guild. Now before starting, please give this video a like, and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Just 2 months ago, Riaz and her team last saw Issei Hayadu before he left the school to train and prepare himself for the battle with Sayarag Bale. Azazel informed them that Issei had asked for the 3 months off so he could focus on his training, while Ravel Phoenix seemed to be passive as if she wasn't affected by the news. Still, she seemed confident that Issei would return from the 3 months of training alone without any of them. If only I could take back what I said to him when I let my jealousy get the better of me, Riaz said as she recalled the day that she made a terrible mistake because of a stupid thing like her name, all because she was a silly greedy woman who didn't deserve Issei Hayadu for all he did for her. Flashback, 2 months ago. Butchu, where are you going? Eyes, will you protect me? Of course, I will protect Butchu. And Asia. Yes, I will also protect Asia. And Akino-san. That is obvious. But why are you suddenly asking me such a thing? Hey, Eyes. Why yes. To you, what am I? Who am I? To me Butchu is Butchu and Ibaka, Riaz Wanasama. Eyes-san. You are horrible. It's too much. Why can't you understand Wanasama's feelings? Saying that Asia goes after Butchu, and after that, many other words follow as they all begin to regret what they said to the boy that day, but when they want to make amends with their friend. He vanished into thin air only to be informed that Azazel knew of this as well as Roswace. Despite what Azazel-sama's words seemed to imply, Ai-sama did not run away or go astray. He filed for a leave of absence from school as well as informing his clients that he will be unavailable for the next 3 months due to taking a training trip to prepare for the upcoming raiding game. Spoke Ravel eloquently. Her words had a desired effect as the tension immediately left the room, and an overwhelming sense of relief filled the hearts of everyone present. Due to a certain fallen angel governor, almost everyone crouched in a corner and pouted petulantly like a child. Despite being a well-bred Aju-sama, Ravel couldn't stop herself from rolling her eyes at the overgrown man-child. Said man-child decided it was finally time to speak up. Yeah, Issei came to me earlier today. He asked me to help him by filing a leave of absence at school. He'll still get the work done. He said he'd have his familiar has them up at the end of each day. He also wanted me to find him a secluded space to train in without disturbance, so I hooked him up with one through the help of my connections because I'm cool like that. He finished with a calm smirk on his face while striking a pose. Riaz, while relieved that her beloved pawn didn't stray, couldn't stop herself from almost snarling at Azazel. How dare he? Issei is her pawn. She should have been notified immediately. At the very least, he should have requested permission. Didn't he trust her enough to speak to her about this? She immediately stopped her thought as she recalled the affairs between her and Eyes. Did he feel that he needed to get away from her? She felt her heart break at the thought. She loves Eyes more than anything, but with the way things were and the things that were said, their potential relationship seems to be even further away from her. She cursed herself for being rash and petulant in her reactions to him and trying to pressure him into confessing. She felt a deep pang of regret for one of the first times in her life. While these issues were important in her mind, she needed to get back to the crux and find out why Azazel thought allowing her pawn to leave without consulting her was a good idea. And why, Azazel, did you think allowing Eyes to leave without my permission was a good idea? Questioned Riaz in a frigid tone, accompanied by an equally cold gaze. She was backed up by Akino, who glared at the fallen angel governor. The others, relieved that their friend was okay, were also highly curious about what was happening. They hoped to find Issei and apologize for how they treated him. But they will have to wait a little longer. They only hoped it wasn't too late and their relationship with him wasn't fractured beyond repair. In response to Riaz's question, the perpetually upbeat archangel narrowed his eyes and adopted an expressionless mask on his face that greatly unnerved the members of the Orc. They'd never been on the receiving end of the governor's ire before, and due to the usual dynamic between him and Issei, it was easy to forget that the man in front of them was one of the most dangerous. Ravel quirked an elegant eyebrow at the drastic change in character for the governor, secretly impressed with his approach. Riaz would never admit it out loud, but she was terrified. She tried strong not to let the quiver in her knees show. You make it sound like Issei is a prisoner here, Riaz. That he has no free will of his own, is that the case? Asked Azazel with a steely tone. He was giving off an oppressive aura to those around him, making them sweat. Riaz faltered in indignant anger at the situation and widened her eyes at the question. How could he say such a thing? Is that why Eyes left without telling her? Because he felt she wouldn't let him go otherwise. Of course not, Azazel. Riaz spluttered. I was just concerned about him, and as his king, I don't want anything happening to him, she added. It was the truth to some extent. She knew how close Issei and Azazel were and wasn't too keen to tell him about earlier today's altercation. She knew it would not end well for her, at least. Azazel stared at her with a scrutinizing expression that made her feel like an ant under a magnifying glass. She felt her entire soul was being laid bare before this man, and she didn't like this feeling. After a few seconds that felt like a lifetime to her, he finally broke out into his usual goofy laugh, and Riaz and the Orc released the breath they didn't realize they were holding and having his ire directed away from them. You don't have to worry about Issei. He's strong enough to care for himself. You realize he surpassed you and everyone in your peerage long ago. He also spent a month on a secluded mountain being led by a dragon king, so he's used to this situation. He's on the verge of evolving in terms of his power. His aura feels more focused and driven. He's going to the next level, and I'm not sure if Sariorg Bale will be ready for the unstoppable force of nature that will run straight into him at the rating game, said Azazel with a smirk on his face. The others were bewildered by the word of the fallen angel. To pay such high praise to someone is no laughing matter. I suggest you use this time to properly hone your skills to at least keep up with Sariorg and his peerage and Issei, stated Azazel as he made to leave the Hayadu residence, leaving behind a deeply troubled orc. In flashback, I am like Rainier, Rias said to herself as Asia walked over to her and reassured her. No, you are not Rias. We've all said things we regret that day and swore that when Issei returned, we would make it up to him. I know he's still out there and getting stronger now. I hate myself since I don't deserve his love after I scolded him as if he was the villain, Asia said as she regretted what she said to Issei since she couldn't believe that she said such hurtful things to the man who saved her life countless times from trouble because she was weak, but also the many things that Issei had done for her ever since he welcomed her in his life. Issei was more than just a friend to the former nun. He was the light of her life and guardian angel, but now he was gone. She felt so empty that a part of her soul was missing because she was selfish. How could she have betrayed the one who had been the one to give her everything she had ever wanted, even some things that Asia didn't even know she did? Sure, Rias was the one to reincarnate her, but Asia understood that it would have never happened had it not been for Issei's stubbornness and unquenchable longing to save her. He befriended her and gave her the life he thought she deserved. If that wasn't enough, he had given up the majority of his lifespan to exact vengeance on her behalf when he believed that Shalba Beelzebub had killed her. Therefore, it was no surprise that she fell unequivocally in love with him. Just being by his side was enough for her, or so she said. But as the days went on, she became greedier. Maybe it was the nature of the devil that she now was that affected her, but she wanted more. She wanted more of his love and his attention. She wanted it focused on her. She remembered the day she said those horrible things to him in the club room and felt a searing pain in her heart. She remembered the look of hurt on his face at her words. But it was too late, and the damage had been done. Please, please return to us, Issei. We are the ones who don't deserve you, but I need you. I'm sorry, Issei, for everything, Asia said to herself as she cried on her bed after checking on Rias and hugged the stuffed mouse she had treasured since she went on that date with Issei. Rias isn't the one who was like Rainier. I was that one because I hurt his heart even when I saw that pain in his eyes, Asia whispered to herself as she hated herself for being so weak and pathetic that she was some crybaby who needed to be saved all the time. The other members of the Orc, excluding Rossways, were also feeling beaten and didn't have the strength to even think about training for the Bale ratings game tomorrow. Kiba Uruto leaned stiffly against the wall at the edge of the room, keeping his sharp and protective gaze on the rest of the peerage. While deeply saddened at the loss of his brother in arms, Kiba knew that he had to keep it together. He needed to stand firm in the face of this tragedy, to be the pillar of strength for the rest of the peerage in their time of turmoil. He knew that Issei would have wanted it that way. They had promised each other that they would carry out this duty if anything happened to the other. It was a promise he kept close to his heart and one he would fulfill with every fiber of his being. I'll make sure they're safe, brother. Always, Kiba said as he went through more training to keep his skills sharpened. Kaneko sat on one of the love seats in the room, staring blankly into space, her face more emotionless than usual. Her eyes, though, couldn't hide the grief that she was feeling. She had finally gotten to understand Eyes recently. He wasn't just the shameless pervert that she thought he was. There was more to him, a greater depth to his beliefs that attracted her like a moth to the flame. He had an inner strength and conviction that he used to blow away the years of doubt and fear that she felt of herself and her power. He helped her overcome the trauma of her childhood, along with helping her reconcile with her older sister, something that she would forever be thankful for. But most importantly, he gave her back the smile she had long since thought she had lost. Being with him brought her newfound happiness and joy, which she would have never thought possible. She was hopeful of pursuing a relationship with him. He made no secret of his longing for HRM, and she had no problems with being part of it as she knew he would treat her well. She also knew that her MSTR, Rias, had a claim on the lovable pervert. So it was an unwritten rule amongst them that before they could further pursue their relationships with him, his relationship with Rias must be solidified as she would act as the head of the HRM. It was frustrating to see that almost no progress was made between them. Eyes was as oblivious to his charms as ever, and Rias was too afraid to make a move. It was causing no small amount of headaches for the rest of them. That was why they were snappy at him on that fateful day in the clubroom. Looking back, she can't help but be ashamed of herself for her behavior. While her frustrations were understandable, it was never any excuse to say something that could be construed as hurtful to someone, especially one as kind and caring as Eyes. It was done in the heat of the moment, and she realized soon after that she had stepped over the line. She knew that she would probably regret those actions for a long time. Yeah, I guess I am a selfish Nico. What kind of person would say those things to the one they love and not even consider what they're going through? I got so used to his smile and gentle aura that I forgot he's probably the one with more weight as our support pillar, Kaneko said as she looked at her chocolate cookies and couldn't taste their sweetness. Nothing was sweet or delicious now that Issei was gone from their home, so she could only hope they could speak to him again and hopefully rebuild what they destroyed. Hanjima Akino was much in the same way as Kaneko. She was sitting on a wooden chair, dead to the world. Her eyes were blank, and she was unresponsive. She spent the time when not training lost in her thoughts. She wondered if it was her fate to lose the people she loved forever. Whether it was to death or, most times, her machinations, she remembered the years of self-loathing she endured. While she would forever be thankful to Rias for all that she had done for her, Issei held a special place in her heart. Akino knew that, for all her usual composure and the facade she put up, she had this horrible habit of acting impulsively and making the worst possible decisions. This was evidenced by how she handled her relationship with her father. She could have been comforted in his warmth for all those years, and they could have shared their grief and grown closer over time. But she threw that all away. She could be somewhat forgiven as she was still a young girl. It was expected that she could not deal with the horrors she witnessed and blamed the most convenient person possible. Looking back, she wasn't proud of it, but she needed to do something like that, or else she would have broken. As the years passed and she matured, she could have found a healthy way to deal with her emotions and rekindle her relationship with her father, but she bottled it all up. She hung on desperately to the pointless hatred that festered in her heart. But then Issei came along and blew away all that negativity with his kindness and compassion. Even though he was one of the biggest perverts she had ever known, he had a heart bigger than anyone could fathom. He took in all her hatred, self-loathing, and insecurities and shouldered them for her. He gave her warmth and love. He accepted all her flaws and put her on a pedestal that she never deserved. He even repaired the relationship with her father, which had been so badly broken, and had given her back her feeling of belonging. And before she knew it, she had fallen deeply in love with him. When the incident in the clubroom happened, she was so caught up in the heat of the moment that she allowed all the impatience and frustration of Ai's and Ria's not being able to advance their relationship so that she could finally have her chance to show. She cut into her beloved Issei with the one thing he couldn't defend himself from. Her words, while seemingly inconsequential to most, they profoundly affected the pawn. Issei's past trauma, his doubts, and his own self-loathing. All those festering wounds were the ones that the salt of her words rubbed into. She could see she had made a mistake from the hurt in his eyes. But it was too late to take back her words. The regret was something that aided her from that day forward. While he's been gone for those 2 months, it was torture for her, but she would wait every day, hoping she would see him again. Hoping that she could get the chance to say she was sorry, to beg for his forgiveness. I am a disgusting fallen angel like the one who killed him and destroyed his heart. After all, I told him that day, how can he even look at me now? Akino asked herself as he looked at the wings that Issei once told her to take pride in, but now only regret filled her heart. Fortunately, their chance of asking Issei for forgiveness had just begun as the one they'd been waiting for finally returned. Unknown location. All was quiet in a vast plains field before a massive portal opened as 2 figures began to leave the said portal. And you're sure this is it, Vali? Of course, Issei. Albion confirmed that this is our world. I hope nothing has happened while we've been gone, Vali said as he walked out of the portal in new clothes that seemed similar but different from his old ones. Vali was now sporting clothes that were meant to be used in combat but also for style as well. He was still wearing the same high-collared black LTHR jacket over his new V-neck shirt while also wearing burgundy jeans with a silver chain drooping down over them and black LTHR chaps with 3 bands encircling his right calf, and black shoes with black buckles. On his ears, he had earrings that seemed to have some orb attached to them, and the armor he was wearing seemed similar to a mecha suit. Vali then turned to see his rival in his new style and chuckled at how those idiots in the other world had helped his opponent grow a lot in the past year. At first, Vali was curious if Issei could become strong enough to fight the Baal Heir due to the devil's incredible power and training. Still, after the 2 of them got tangled up with some dimensional hopping issues thanks to that idiot from the hero faction, it turned out for the better since that world. The enemies they faced were able to help both of them achieve even greater power. However, the one who improved the most was the man he was proud to call his rival, Issei Hayadu. Due to his training with many people in that world, Issei had undergone such a drastic change, and Vali didn't mean an appearance but also the aura around Issei. At first, Issei only looked the part of being a wielder of a dragon due to D-drag with him. Still, now Issei looked much more muscular than most would remember him being, not to the point where he became bulky and unappealing but achieving a perfect balance between strength and speed which was very fitting given Issei's fighting style. Issei also looked taller as he stood at 6 feet 2 inches, and his eyes were a startling shade of emerald green. He was almost all black, with black LTHR breathe flared out at the bottom with black biker boots. Issei also wore a high-collared, black cloak which also bears his draconian markings, along with a few straps wrapped around his right thigh as well as a maroon belt with 3 straps as well crossing each other diagonally with a snarling dragon head for a belt buckle. His top consisted of a body from a black LTHR combat vest that cut off at his arms and fitted to his body in a way that clearly showed the definition he worked strong to receive from his training. And his hands were covered in plain black LTHR gloves. While his right arm was the regular, slightly tan color of his skin, his left was covered to his wrist in what looked like various tattoos that radiated power. Issei also let his hair grow out a bit as it was long, reaching the bottom of his neck, spiky black hair with red tips in a ponytail and 3 green beads at the end of his hair. His ears were also pierced on both sides with a 3D diamond shape of glowing emerald with the vertices covered in metal and a dragon fang necklace wrapped snugly around his neck. Adding to that was the sharp and elegant features of his face with his narrowed eyes gave him a bad boy vibe that drove the Pharisee crazy. I'll admit that I didn't think he would have been able to return home, but I got to admit that now that we're back after all of that, it feels weird, Vali said as Issei nodded in response. Agreed. I'm surprised that we've only been gone for 2 months, even though it feels like it's been longer than that, Issei said as he let out a tired sigh while Vali looked at his rival's eyes and could tell they were sharp and severe as a true warrior who had seen battle and many casualties in war. Yeah, I was surprised by the number of enemies we faced there, especially the dragons since they were much stronger than I imagined. If it weren't for the armor I got from Idolis, I probably would have been a goner, Vali said as he tapped his shoes on the ground before Issei nodded in agreement. Indeed, the time we spent there were memories I won't forget, though I'm not sure when we'll be able to return. As far as I know, it was a one-way trip, Issei said as he felt he had left another family back in another world. Vali could tell Issei was saddened by this before he put a hand of comfort on his rival's left shoulder. I know how you feel. It was like I was with my old group again, but it felt more special thanks to the old man. I finally know what it's like to have a real family and friends, Vali said as he was glad the old man and the iron and lighting dragon idiots knocked some sense into him. If Gadgil and Laxus were here now, they'd try to kick your butt. They can try, but it'll always end the same way. Than being buried 6 feet under my boot, Vali said as Issei chuckled in response before the White Dragon Emperor revealed his new wings and looked back at Issei. I'm going to go reunite with my friends. You okay being out here on your own? Yeah, I'll be fine. Besides, I still have a month to train before the match, so I will enjoy training my abilities and the weapons I gained from Earthland and Eden. Also, don't get into trouble, so I must bail you out again, Issei said with a smirk as Vali chuckled at the comment before flying away while Issei waved at his friend's back. Issei then walked through the plains field and headed towards his cottage that he was staying in before smiling at the nostalgic memories of his time staying in a particular apartment with Vali. I never would have thought I'd miss coming back here, Issei said as he then summoned the boosted gear, but instead of the clunky gauntlet, he was able to change it and make it suit his fighting style. But one thing he didn't forget was that the boosted gear wasn't the same now that the dragon and the past users were gone. It's strange. It feels like Ddraig and the other users are somehow free from the boosted gear but are still connected to it, Issei said as he recalled his experience in the other world and how he had faced beings more powerful than he ever dreamed of, which was a reality check for him as Issei felt fear and almost death when the dragons and their family faced the threats that were within that world such as Zareth and Acknowledge. Heck, even Foss, the enemies of that world were far more potent than the ones he faced in his world. My only regret is how I had to make that sacrifice to help defeat Acknowledge once and for all, Issei said as he recalled the deal he made with Ddraig and the past users of the boosted gear. What? But if I take all of your power, Ddraig, that means why you'll die. I wanted to find a way to bring you back with a body of your own. There has to be another way, Issei shouted at Ddraig as the dragon knew this would happen before he patted the boy's head and had a look of acceptance on his face. It is all right, partner. I've given up on trying to regain my body for thousands of years because now I have another reason. To help you fight that BSTRD and take him down, Ddraig said as the past users could feel the boy's sadness and pain before Issei slowly nodded as he held his left hand out. Okay, Ddraig, I promise I'll put your power to good use and make sure I kill that son of a bitch for calling us a false dragon, Issei said with a confident smile that Ddraig recognized before the dragon smiled as he used a paw and touched the hand before their world was littered with a bright crimson light. I, who is about to awaken. Ddraig began to turn into magic, as did the past users, as they joined in on the chant that Issei was saying. I am the Red Dragon Emperor who has discarded the principles of domination. Issei let tears fall from his eyes as he recalled the memories he shared with his friend and brother of a dragon as he watched the past users vanish and become magic that entered his body. I shall walk the road of righteousness with infinite hopes and dreams. Issei personally thanked the past users as they all went inside him and filled him with power, as well as the most potent male and female users of the boosted gear. We're proud of you, kid. Always. So go back and kick that dragon's butt. Also, make sure you tell Urza how you feel. You two are quite a pair. Issei blushed at both Belzard and Elsha's words before the two vanished, leaving only Issei and Ddraig. I shall become the king of Crimson Dragon. Ddraig smiled at those words since Issei had proven himself to be a worthy king instead of a pawn due to how much he's grown as a leader and a man before the dragon of domination used a talon and wiped the boy's tears from his eyes. Issei cried as he hugged the dragon's body, which Ddraig didn't mind as he was grateful to have met Issei and had gotten to know him. I'm so proud of you, Issei Hayaudu. You've become a fine man and someone worthy of becoming a king. I wouldn't be surprised if you were offered to become a Mao. Be careful out there, Issei, alright. I won't be able to keep you out of trouble, so learn to love and forgive those who hurt you, Issei. You deserve happiness and a good life. Goodbye, my brother, Issei Hayaudu, Ddraig said with one last smile. Issei saw D-Drag close his eyes as he became magic and entered his host's body before Issei looked around him and saw he was alone within the boosted gear. Issei clenched his left fist as he felt his power become much more potent than before as he finished the chant. And I promise you all, I shall show you the future which shines in true crimson light. And thus, the king of the Crimson Dragon was born. Issei let a few tears fall as he clenched his left fist once again before smiling at the memory of the dragon. I promise, D-Drag, I promise I'll make you so proud you envy my achievements, Issei said as he could hear the dragon chuckle in amusement at the idea before goading the boy to go for it and prove it. Issei then decided to walk outside and summon the weapons he had gathered from his adventurers in the other world. The first to appear was Issei, as the Holy Dragon Slayer blade was still radiating its holy aura and was fond of being close to its MSDR. It was a perfect partner and weapon when Issei was training to get better at using a sword and guns in combat. The second one was his first new weapon in the other world as it looked like a spear that split into 4 jagged blades perpendicular to one another and curved inwards, resembling a claw. Still, thanks to the upgrades on the spear, it could use all of its transformations with ease so Issei could better understand how to use it. The third was a combination of magic weapons obtained from Idolas as the weapon combined with the sealed flame blade and the air shatter cannon. Since at first, the 2 weapons were only good for a few battles, but then Issei had an idea of combining them both, so with some help and a few upgrades, it was now a cannon sword that was able to shoot concentrated attacks in the form of fires, tornado, air blasts, and combined magic attacks. The next one is an armor Urza gave to Issei when he was interested in the armor since it went well with his knight form when using the balance breaker. The armor was originally a 2-tone dress largely open in the middle and had a ribbon visible around her neck, which was tied around the collar. It also came with armored gauntlets, which covered the entirety of one's forearms. Usually, there would be a pair of bunny-eared greaves adorning the knee guards composed of plates attached to a couple of high heels, but Issei had it changed to suit a dragon. As for his head, instead of getting a band with bunny ears, Issei got dragon horns that amused him and the armor's weapon of choice, which happened to be a pair of twin blades. His following few weapons were the blades that Urza gave to him when the swords chose Issei to be their new MSDR. Issei was surprised by this before Urza told him that the edges select the ones they want to wield, so if they wished for Issei to be their owner, she would allow them to be with him. The first 2 swords were the Fire Dragon's Flames and the Ice Devil's Chill, which were exciting swords for him since he wasn't used to using magic weapons besides the boosted gear armor, which led to Urza training Issei like crazy to use his new swords and guns. However, his deadliest sword within his arsenal is the Demon Blade Benizakura. The sword was only meant to be used for offensive purposes, but that was only one of its abilities. The sword can be classified as a glass cannon since it can increase its power by pouring magic into it. Still, Issei was able to beat that issue since he was able to use his transfer ability and made the sword even sharper and more durable when he asked Urza to wield it, but to their surprise, the blade fused with the boosted gear, similar to when Issei did the same to Issei. The 2 knights were surprised as the blade even changed appearance since it had dragon scales descending the sword's edge. Urza was intrigued, so she let Issei keep the blade since she felt the sword was reacting to his power whenever it was summoned. Issei still felt like he was taking Urza's swords unintentionally, so he decided to get her a new blade to make up for the one he took, which Urza didn't mind, which led to a shopping trip to the blacksmith and the bakery to get their strawberry cake. Overall, it was a fair trade and a nice day to shop for something. And lastly, the final weapon Issei had in his arsenal wasn't a sword but a massive weapon that suited his Crimson Rook armor. The Holy Hammer. It reminded Issei of the time he used the fake Mjolnir in the battle with Loki. Still, the hammer shrunk down for Issei to use in his Crimson Rook armor, and it was surprisingly easy for him to use in combat because it was so light and could even protect him from that dreadful sound magic. In becoming more of a dragon than a human, I got greedy when it came to power, Issei said as he laughed a bit before pondering how Vali was doing with his new powers and weapons since he upgraded the Sacred Gear's balance breaker form. With Vali, so let me get this straight, you and Issei got caught on another world due to the hero faction using Lost Dimension, which connected to said other world you were in for 2 years. Azazel asked as he was surprised to see that Vali came to speak to him and inform him about what happened to both him and Issei since the White Dragon Emperor had a feeling that Issei wouldn't be in contact with Azazel for the last month of his training. Correct. We just returned today since we could use the bridge between Earthland and Idolas to locate our world, which brings us here, Vali said as Azazel was stunned to hear this before looking at Vali and could tell he had grown more vigorous in his time in that other world. So you gained some new powers, and then some. Issei was a good sparring partner, along with a few idiots who were amusing to laugh at since they caused so much damage and reminded me too much of the new Mau faction, Vali said as he groaned at the idea of putting up with the head-headed idiot, the iron-headed idiot, the ice SDRPR, and the thunder dragon user. That sounds like some of the people in the new Mau faction. And an old perverted geezer who's just like you, Vali said with a smirk as Azazel defended himself. Hey, too mean, Azazel said as he wiped his crocodile tears while Vali smiled as he looked at his father figure before sighing to himself. I will probably regret this, but would you like to see my new balance breaker? Vali asked as Azazel stopped fake crying and looked at his son in awe before hugging Vali in a bone-crushing hug. Yes, thank you, thank you, thank you, Azazel said before letting Vi go as the White Dragon Emperor shook his dizziness away while Albion laughed at his partner. It's times like these that make me glad I don't have a body. Shut up, you lazy lizard, Vali said as Albion continued to laugh at his partner before Vali stood back and let his aura explode, which shocked Azazel since the power that Vali was releasing was around the level of a Super Mao. Incredible, such power in such a short time, Azazel said as Vali summoned his balance breaker, which was not the standard armor. Still, it was now a massive suit of armor that resembled a magical, armored, mechanical dragon. It had the same color design as the Divine Dividing Gear, but the armor was more massive, as Vali explained the new armor. Meet my new balance breaker. The original name of the armor was Dorma. It's a powerful suit of armor that makes all sorts of magical attacks weak against it, plus the armor functions by using magic. Still, I was able to have someone assist me in upgrading it, so I didn't have to use my reserve pool of magic since this armor is an energy hog that requires massive amounts of magic to use its abilities. Vali said as Azazel looked at the armor in awe before asking, "Got anything else or this it?" Azazel asked, and he was not disappointed by the response from Vali as he removed the helmet from the armor so he could speak more clearly for the fallen governor to hear. The armor is just the start since I can still use Albion's divide power in this suit, and I added a few new upgrades, Vali said as he opened the center of the armor to show his new clothes, which were black full body suit that covers the user's whole body up to their neck, throughout the suit or circuit lines. I got the idea from that game you told me about with the Ridley monster, so I call it my Zero suit. When I leave the armor temporarily, it gives me enhanced speed and strength, Vali said as Azazel was proud of his son for playing that game to help him make some friends, which did work with Issei. Sort of. Along with the suit, my armor also has weapons similar to Issei's different armor, but instead of having to SWCH between the armies like Issei has to, the balance breaker has them already attached, Vali said as he tapped a few commands before the armor stood up and summoned two weapons in its hands. The left hand had a teal-colored shield greatly resembling a mirror. Two trident-shaped plates adorn the sides of the shield, and a golden ornament with two white wings adorns the top of the shield. And in the right hand was a large, spear-like weapon resembling a medieval javelin. The weapon consisted of a large silver spear end set into a darker colored base. Four triangular extensions protruded onto the spear from the base with a blue jewel set in each. Extending out the back are two guards, the bottom of which goes to the armor's elbow and the top extended across the whole arm, acting as a shield to its face. Meet Ricochet the shield, which bounces back any physical and magical attacks. On the other hand, the spear is Habaraki, which can change the size of whatever it hits. Vali explained as Azazel was amazed by the design of the weapons before asking him, "Can you use them in your base form as well?" "Oh yes, I had to undergo some training to get used to fighting with weapons since I was an absolute rookie, but I caught up quickly thanks to the pride of wanting to outshine Issei," Vali said as he recalled the times that the two of them had sparred to get a feel for the new weapons and abilities they gained in Earthland and Adolis. Azazel was surprised by this before seeing massive bazookas emerge from the back and feeling a paralysis effect take his body. "Whoa, oh, Vali, oh right, I knew, forgetting that the armor has massive magic bazookas on its back, and I may have covered the armor in a substance called paralysis power to make sure my enemies are paralyzed by the armor when they touch it," Vali said as he took out some powder from his storage before sprinkling some on Azazel as he was glad that was over. "Thank you, and I can tell you've changed for the better, Vali. At first, I thought you were the same, but I can tell you are not the same kid I saw at the Biblical Faction Peace Conference," Azazel said as Vali was glad to see that his old man didn't see him as the same person he was before since Vali had learned a lot from his time in both worlds for the past 2 years. Physically he didn't look any different, but like Issei, their eyes said otherwise. "Oh, I have some familiars of my own. They're nice, but they're a bit odd." "Define odd." Vali then pulled out a set of unique keys since one was gold and the other was silver. The golden key was unique since the center of the bow of the key bears the symbol of the Pisces constellation on a dark background, flanked by two elongated fishes with large invisible fins and tails, overlapping in correspondence to their tiny heads and the tails themselves. The end of the key's blade takes the shape of an anchor. The silver key was designed more intricately than the golden key since the bow is circular and bears the crest of the chisel in its center, colored green, while the blade of the key ends in a simple design, similar to other silver keys. "Open, Gate of Pieces. Open, Gate of Kalem," Vali said as he turned the keys to his sides as if opening a door before two portals appeared. Two koi fish came out of the Pieces gate, while the other being that emerged was a sphere with a halo-like circle at the top. It looked like it was made of metal and had lines tracing around its shape. The center of Kalem's body was in a darker shade of gray than the rest of its body, and there was a small white circle with a smaller light green circle inside, giving it the appearance of an eye. "Allow me to introduce my familiars, the constellation Pieces and Kalem. The two are very useful to assist me since Pieces specializes in water magic and are good in combat, while Kalem has two other forms to assist me in battle." Vali explained as Azazel inspected Calum and was quite impressed as it turned into its other two forms, a cannon and a sword. Interesting. Does Issei have some familiars like these too? Well, Vali began as he knew Issei's familiars were unique and a bit special in their way. That's a different story, but I'll tell you later. Right now, I want to catch up with you and my team. If you'll have me, that is. Azazel was surprised by this coming from Vali before smiling at his first son as he dragged him to his office. Hell yeah, we're drinking tonight. Vali smiled as he missed this side of his actual father figure and wasn't going to make the same mistake and take the governor for granted ever again, even if Azazel can be a pain at times. Back with Issei. Alright then, Virgo. Hi Issei-sama. Well, be doing some training, so get ready, Issei said as he looked at the one known as Virgo and smiled at the maid as she readied her chains while undoing the ropes she found herself in. If I do horrible, will you punish me, MSDR? Virgo asked as Issei sighed. He knew his two celestial spirits were different since Virgo was a masochistic one while his other spirit was a quiet sadistic one on the enemy and definitely in the sheets. Yes, Libra, and I shall punish you if you do well or not, Issei said as Virgo smiled and rubbed herself on her MSDR chest before smiling while pulling out some rope. Shall we begin with some FR-ply first before the training? Virgo asked with stars in her eyes before Issei began to pull on Virgo's cheek, and instead of crying out in pain, Virgo was blushing while turning into a puddle. Why yes, MSDR, I'm sorry for being you useless. Virgo moaned as she enjoyed the moment with her MSDR before the masochistic maid was flattened on the ground as another person walked towards her MSDR. The woman was curvy with dark hair tied in an ox horn style. Her attire resembled a belly dancer's, consisting of a frilled and striped bikini top and a patterned loincloth sporting pom-poms at the waist. She wore numerous bangles on her arms and legs, and a thick necklace also concealed her neck. A simple pair of sandals was on her feet, and her head was dressed with a zigzagged headband. Covering the woman's lower face is another cloth that bears her zodiac sign, tied around her head. Dangling from her hands, the woman was carrying a pair of scales, with thin cords running from her fingertips to the ranking sides, so she held them almost puppeteer-like. Ah, Libra, can you let Virgo go? This is enough to satisfy her M-gauge, Issei said as the woman known as Libra looked at the satisfied maid before letting up the gravity press, which made Virgo pout in sadness that it was over before Virgo stood up with a severe look on her face. I am ready to assist Issei-sama, Virgo said as Issei nodded before Virgo dived into the ground and made a massive crater while Issei headed toward the center of the hole. Okay, just like MSDR Makarov and Irene told me when I tried to do it first, Issei said as he concentrated on the depths of his soul and looked within the boosted gear that housed the souls he consumed when learning to take over magic. Issei may be able to utilize Beast Soul but was also able to unlock a new type of takeover magic unique to him. Dragon Soul, meaning he can take over the dragon's bodies and be able to use their abilities, similar to Murajane's Satan Soul magic and Elfman's Beast Soul. However, even though Issei could use the Dragon Soul technique on only a few dragons, his most challenging ones were the two most powerful ones within his body. Irene Belsirian would have died by Acknowledge had Issei not been permitted to use Dragon Soul on Irene and absorb her body and powers. The same was said for Acknowledge since Issei was brought before the guild MSDR as the Red Dragon Emperor was shocked to see the body of the Apocalypse Dragon before being requested to use his Dragon Soul magic on the dragon, which surprised the boy before Makarov spoke to the boy. Remember that even though you took over their bodies and magic, you still must be careful not to give in to the beast's powers and give control to them. Otherwise, you'll lose your humanity. Issei breathed as he grabbed the souls he wished to use first. Dragon Soul, YD Dragok. Issei's eyes widened as a crimson aura rose from his body before he became the heavenly dragon himself. Issei turned back to his usual self as he turned into beasts that he took over from his travels with Fairy Tail before he looked at the two souls of the Dragon King and Queen. I don't want to go this route, but if it's the best way to learn how to combine them, then so be it, Issei said as he took a deep breath. He reached the Dragon King's soul as a massive black aura radiated around Issei's body. The Dragon Soul, Acknowledge, Issei shouted as the massive burst of magic was able to destroy the crater and expand it even more before Issei's appearance changed to look similar to Acknowledge but different since the only noticeable changes were that Issei's skin was darker, that his clothes changed to be identical to that of Acknowledge. Issei inspected his form before taking a deep breath and opening his eyes. Dragon Soul, Fire Dragon King Scales, Issei muttered as he saw his arms gain Irene's dragon scales before Issei could turn back to normal as he breathed heavily and felt the restraints appear on Acknowledge's soul again. DMN. It was easy combining Irene and D-Drag's power, but whenever I try to use Acknowledge's soul, I can only hold it for about 5 hours before tops, and yet when I try to combine the other dragons with the Dragon King, it rejects it and fights back, Issei said as he looked at his left arm and clenched his fist. I swore I would be able to conquer this power, and like hell, I'll fall so easily, Issei said as he liked a challenge before seeing a projection of the Dragon King himself smirking at the boy. Then prove it, boy. I respected you, Vali, and that brat Natsu as you defeated me, so show me you can easily use my power, the projection said with a laugh. Issei smiled as he liked the challenge before looking at both Virgo and Libra as they approached their MSDR with concern before Issei calmed them both down. It's okay, you two. I'm still myself, but I only got a month left, so shall we get started? Issei asked as his right arm became enveloped in fire while his left arm became enveloped in ice magic. We are ready to serve you, Issei, Isama. Virgo and Libra said simultaneously, ready to assist their MSDR and friend in his training. And the underworld will shake in fear as they would not be prepared for the coming of the two dragon kings. Vali Lucifer, the white dragon emperor blessed by the dragons of light and shadow, and Issei Hayadu, the red dragon emperor that the dragon sage Irene and the dragon Igniel blessed. These two will shake their world as they show their enemies and comrades how strong they've become during their departure. Sayarag Bale was disappointed in the Gremory peerage since he could tell that their resolve was weak, and granted they could secure some victories, but still lacked the strength to fight against his forces. Is this the same team I saw only 3 months ago? I must say that I'm very disappointed in my cousin, Sayarag said as he looked at his few defeated pieces and the results of the previous battles up until now. From what he had heard from the rumors in the underworld about Issei being gone for 3 months to train and get stronger, Sayarag was hoping that the others in the peerage would follow Issei's example and train as well. Still, sadly, it seemed that they hardly trained at all, which genuinely disappointed the Bale heir since he was hoping that Riaz would have gotten her act together and helped her peerage get stronger. Sayarag sighed as Riaz used the intermission to decide what to do, but he knew that the only thing Riaz could do was send out her remaining bishop since the girl hadn't even entered the arena yet. And here I was hoping to face Issei in a great battle, but he hasn't shown up yet. I do hope he'll be here soon, Sayarag said as his queen came to his side and smiled at him. There's no need to worry, Sayarag. I'm sure Issei will show up. After all, he's been looking forward to this battle as well, just as much as you. The Bale Queen said as Sayarag smiled in response before he felt a powerful aura enter the arena. A very familiar aura made the Bale heir smile at this feeling. Oh yes, my queen. It seems he's shown up after all, Sayarag said as he headed into the arena to fight the one man he knew would give him a good battle. Issei Hayadu. On the Gremory side. A bit earlier, Riaz Giaramari chewed on her nails to alleviate the pressure she could feel trying to swallow her up. It was only down to herself in Asia against the most potent youth devil, Sayarag Bale. Her beloved Issei was nowhere to be seen. This day was not going as she had hoped it would. It started as her prized pawn and love interest, Hayadu Issei, who left 3 months ago to train in a secluded location, didn't show up on the morning of the most significant day yet for her peerage. Those 3 months felt more like 30 years to her. Riaz could hardly concentrate on improving herself as she was desperate to see her precious pawn again and apologize to him for behaving so selfishly. It was all she could think about these last 2 months, and she was sure the rest of her peers were in the same situation. Riaz knew that being unfocused before such a vast match asked for trouble, but she couldn't help it. Her delicate maiden heart still yearned for his attention, even though Riaz knew she didn't deserve it. Her team was already on edge due to their missing member, so the trip there didn't calm their nerves. Arriving at the venue, they received the news that Issei would be a little late from Azazel, whom he reached via his familiar, the Skitblethneer. It still pained her to think he contacted Azazel and not her to inform her. It hurt even more to know that he could have contacted her or her peers during these last 3 months. She wondered if he was still upset with her. She asked if he hated her and wanted nothing to do with her anymore, along with other nonsensical scenarios like him eloping Aphrodite, who seduced him away from her. What a SLT. A maiden's heart is complicated, and she knew she was being ridiculous, but Riaz couldn't help herself. She convinced herself that Issei just needed some time away to sort out whatever he needed to, and she hoped that when he got back, things could return to the way they were or maybe even better if her dream came true. After arriving in the underworld, the Gremory peerage, Azazel and Irina made their way to Agrias. It was a city on a floating island in the sky, located in the Agairs territory. The current head of the Agairs clan intervened after the disputes between the current Mao faction and the Great King faction to agree on the match's location. It was a tumultuous situation regarding the raiding game, which was supposed to be a platform for the youth devils to showcase their power. Still, instead, it became tainted with greed in the higher-ups' politics and is now acting as a representative war between the Mao faction and the Great King faction. After getting their pre-game talk out of the way and arriving at the stadium, the Gremory peerage discovered the raiding game's special rules, dice figure. The rules were simple. Each king rolled a single die, and they could then send out combatants whose value, in terms of pieces, equaled the combined number moved by both kings. It was good that these rules were in effect. If it had been a regular game, Issei would have been disqualified for being late. He doesn't have to fight unless sent out by Riaz, leaving him enough time to make it to the stadium. As the first match got underway, Riaz sent out her knight, Kiba Yuyudo, to go against the knight from Sayarag's peerage, Baruka Furkas. It was a tough match for Yuyudo, as he went up against a member of the Furkas clan whose specialty was controlling horses. In the end, Yuyudo used deception and his surprising second balance breaker, Glory Drag Trooper from the Blade Blacksmith half of his holy demonic sword, to take down Baruka, earning the Gremory peerage an early win. The second match featured the Rooks, Roswis, and Karniko against the Rook, Gandoma Baliam, and the Knight, Libin Krosel. It was a tough match for the Rooks as Baliam's overwhelming strength in defense and Krosel's trickery and sacred gear, Gravity Jail, proved quite an obstacle. However, Roswis's extraordinary intellect and Kaniko's incredible fortitude earned them the win, the second in a row for the Gremory Peerage. Unfortunately, it came at a cost because Kaniko was taken out, ultimately devastating her teammates. The third match was a magic battle between Aquino and Sariorg's Bishop Coriana and Realfus. It was a flashy battle with lots of elemental magic thrown around, but in the end, Aquino's magic prowess was too much for the Bishop of Sariorg as she was defeated, earning Rias 3 straight wins for her peerage. The fourth match pitted Zenobia and Gasper, who surprisingly volunteered, against the descendants from extinct pillar houses, the Bishop, Mestina Sabnok, and the Rook, Ludor Bune. It was a brutal match. Thanks to Sabnok's sacred gear, Trick Vanish, Zenovia's ex-Durandal, was sealed, leaving her defenseless. But almost everyone was surprised as Gasper stood up to the plate and took a ruthless beating while stalling for time as he tried to unseal Zenovia's holy sword. He succeeded in the end but was eliminated, but not after giving a genuinely marvelous and moving performance, allowing a highly emotional Zenobia to sweep through both opponents with her ex-Durandal earning a 4th win for the Gremory Peerage. The 5th match was Queen vs. Queen, with Aquino against Quisha Abaddon, an extra demon from the House of Abaddon. Again, similar to her previous game, it was a magical battle. The Aquino had the advantage of pure power, however, Quisha was much more resourceful, especially with her clan's signature move, Hole. Ultimately, Aquino's lack of knowledge of the skill was her downfall as her holy lightning was turned against her, with Quisha earning the first win for Sariorg's peerage. The 6th match saw the king, Sariorg, step forward to face the Urudo, Zenovia, and Roswis team. They worked well to go against the monstrous strength and speed of Sariorg, along with his overflowing Tauki. They even managed to sever his arm, forcing him to use his Phoenix Tear. But in the end, his overwhelming power proved too much for the trio as they succumbed to defeat in the future. The 7th match saw Sariorg send out his queen again, as they were the only 2 left in the peerage. Rias had to step out herself as she couldn't risk Asia. The battle was, again, magic-intensive as demonic powers flew all over the place. Quisha proved to be quite the combatant and pushed Rias to the edge. But in the end, the power of destruction was far too much for the queen to handle, and she was defeated. Luckily, Rias had Asia to heal her after the beating she took. This brings us to the current situation. Only Sariorg was left in his peerage. He automatically took to the field. Rias was in a pinch now, as her only option was to send out Asia, as a single combatant couldn't fight 2 matches in a row. Rias was at the end of her rope. She still had her earpiece on and was consulting with the rest of her peers, who were under supervision in the medical room but could still watch the match. Issei-kun isn't here yet. Rias, it seems we have no choice but to send out Asia-chan. As soon as the match starts, have her forfeit. If Issei-kun is not here by then, you must take on Sariorg yourself. Aquino stated logically as she reclined on a hospital bed, recovering from her injuries. All around her were the rest of the peerage, who were also awake with their earpieces on, watching the game. Rias just let out a sigh. You're right, of course. Do you think you can handle it, Asia? Questioned Rias to her adorable bishop. Said the blonde, nodded her head firmly. Hai One-sama, I won't let you down, exclaimed Asia as she cutely pumped her fist, bringing a smile to her king's face. Good luck, Asia-san. We will be here waiting for you in the medical room. Yudo and the rest of the peerage gave their timid bishop friend well wishes. Are you ready to go, Asia? Questioned Rias. After all, she only had a minute and a half left to submit her combatant. Asia nodded and prepared to step into the magic circle, but a voice in their ears stopped her and the rest of the peerage in their tracks. Man, if I knew you guys were this desperate, I would have been here much sooner. Also, there is no need to send Asia to battle against Sayarag. I'll take it from here. A familiar deep voice that was brimming with confidence and charisma. He had their earpiece, which was only given out to members of their peerage. It took them a while to recognize him since they hadn't heard his voice in almost 3 months. Not to mention his voice had changed a little, but there was no doubt in their mind. Their pawn had finally returned. Issei-kun, Issei-senpai, Issei-san, exclaimed the peerage all at once as an overwhelming sense of relief washed over them. The most powerful member of their peerage was finally here and just in time. After 3 months without his soothing presence, they felt the floodgates open. They truly learned to appreciate their pawn on a whole other level compared to before, as his absence sapped the motivation from most of them. As Azazel once pointed out, he was the heart of the team. Asia, Aquino, and Gasper shed tears unashamedly, and even Kaniko's eyes were a little misty, though she tried to hide it. Kiba and Roswis were slightly more reserved in their reaction but no less relieved, especially Roswis, who was suspiciously blushing and teary-eyed, not that anyone noticed. Issei, whispered Rias softly as tears rolled down her face. It felt as if a huge weight had been lifted off her shoulders. Issei had this strange ability to put people at ease, raise their spirits, and give them courage with his presence. She was sure her peerage felt the same. Now that he was here, they were filled with hope. This was one of the reasons she fell in love with him. He was a blazing sun piercing through the darkness of this world. You did well out there, Gasper. I'm proud of you, little buddy. You, as well, Kaniko. You all have done your parts, now it's time I do mine. Sorry I'm late, but I'll take things from here. This is my fight. You guys sit back and enjoy the show. Issei said quietly, self-assuredly, that the rest of them didn't know he had. Gasper was beaming at the praise of his favorite senpai, and Kaneko blushed at his words. The others sat up a little straighter upon hearing his words. There was always a quiet confidence in them regarding Issei and his ability to pull through in a fight, and they knew that the only person in their peerage who could even remotely face Sariorg head-on was Issei. Even though the conversation was being held via earpieces, they could practically feel his confidence oozing off. It was an incredibly reassuring feeling, as his teammates simultaneously, however, it intimidated them to the point that they felt the need to submit to him. It only lasted a few seconds before the feeling disappeared, making them feel like they had just imagined it. Rias wanted to say something, to apologize for her behavior the last time they spoke, to ask for forgiveness, but the words caught in her throat. She was far too engrossed in the sound of his voice, which she hadn't heard in 3 months. It sounded much manlier and more mature as well. She knew now was not the time, as he needed to focus on the fight. So she did the only thing she could. "Good luck, Issei," she whispered. "Thank you, Rias. We'll talk after this battle is over," Issei replied before he cut off the connection and moved toward the arena. Rias felt a little disheartened at the response. If it were Issei of a few months, he would have stumbled over himself and tried to reassure her that he could win and do it for her. He would then have a lewd look as he imagined how she would reward him, most of them involving her breasts. She let out a sad smile to herself. It seemed like her beloved Issei had changed since he left. She only hoped he didn't resent her, as did the others who knew they were on bad terms with Issei after what they did to him. And now, back to the battle. It's time this dragon took flight. Sariorg Bale, you are someone I acknowledge as a worthy opponent. However, today, you will be a stepping stone to my ascension. I honestly don't think you are ready for what's about to hit you, Issei said as he summoned his wings, which were much more extensive than his old devil wings. Then, he walked through the portal, smiling as he looked forward to this matchup. Watch over me, D-Dragon Fairy Tail. Thanks to you, I'll show them how strong I've become, Issei said, feeling that D-Drag was still there and that the bonds he had made with Fairy Tail were as strong as ever. The Oppai Dragon part section of the stands filled with many children of the underworld. Most were commoners or children of reincarnated devils, meaning low-class devils of a low social caste. They were all allowed to attend the event today, though, along with their parents, thanks to their hero, the Oppai Dragon, who covered the cost of the tickets and their snacks and beverages, allowing them to be here today. The excitement was palpable as they all witnessed their first live raiding game. They were excitedly talking to their parents and friends about the matches they saw and the extraordinary abilities on show. They were all waiting for their idol, the legendary Chichiryute, to appear. Sitting in the front of the section was the manager of the Sekiryude, Ravel Phoenix. She took the initiative to be the representative, cheerleader of this section of the stadium. When Issei-sama contacted her and asked her to organize this initiative on his behalf and transferred an obscene amount of money into a particular bank account that he gave her full access to, Ravel was at first shocked before she felt an immense sense of pride swell up in her chest. She expected nothing less from the man she had chosen to become her king. His kindness and benevolence knew no bounds, and she was honored that he trusted her above all others to accomplish this task. Ravel took to it with gusto, arranging everything with alarming efficiency. She ensured that her Issei-sama got the recognition for his deed, even though he asked her not to worry about it. She spent most of the match pumping the kids up and encouraging them to show their support for their favorites. On the outside, she was cool, calm, and collected, but on the inside, she experienced a turbulence of emotions. She was perturbed. The main reason she was here is that she has yet to show up. She could feel, as she was sure the rest of the spectators could, that the end was nigh. It was down to just Sariorg Bale on one end against Rias-sama, Asia-san, and Issei-sama. The problem is that Issei-sama has yet to fight a match and was absent when the team walked out to the field. Ravel could hear many whispers, mainly from snooty high-class devils, about how the mighty Red Dragon Emperor fled with his tail between his legs at the prospect of fighting a high-class devil of the pure house of Bale. She silently gritted her teeth as she willed herself not to incinerate those pests. Ravel was sure they were putting on airs and hoping to earn some favor with Zekram Beal, the original Great King. These people sickened her to the core, and she wondered if this was what the future genuinely held for her race. It's one of the reasons she became so infatuated with Issei-sama in the first place. He was so unconventional, so unorthodox from the usual stuck-up devils. He didn't care about traditions or customs. He just spoke his mind and did what he wanted. To her, he was a beacon of light representing hope for her in the future. That's why she promised herself that she would train her mind and body so that when the time came, she would be a woman worthy to stand by his side. While contemplating these matters, she heard the commentator's voice signal that the time for strategies and decision-making was up, and the time for the 8th match was now. She crossed her fingers, hoping he got here in time. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from that short break. I hope you packed up on some snacks because the 8th match is set to get underway and will be a doozy. Governor Azazel, Emperor Belial, what has been your impression of the game so far? Questioned the commentator, Nod Gamijin, from the House of Gamijin of the former 72 Pillars. He was a professional commentator with years of experience covering raiding games. He was quite enthusiastic about his job as well. Well, it certainly has been exciting to watch. The kids down there are performing far above the standards of such youngsters, which feels like a professional match. While the Gremory Peerage shot out the blocks by grabbing the wins in the first 4 matches, Sarayorg and his queen turned it around spectacularly. The Gremory Peerage still has 3 members left: Rias, the king; Asia Argento, the bishop; and Hayato Issei, the pawn. Although Sarayorg is alone on the other end, you can't help but feel he has the advantage here. Such is the overwhelming strength he possesses, and as he is the only one left on his team, he is automatically the next contestant. Since Rias fought the previous match, she is barred from fighting. Asia Argento, as you know, is the group's healer and, as such, has yet to combat experience to take on Sarayorg. The most logical choice, and the matchup we all came here to watch, would be Hayato Issei. However, he has yet to make an appearance despite many opportunities. Was Rias saving him for the end? We'll find out soon enough, stated Azazel. He was having a lot of fun commenting on this match and spoke the truth when he said he wanted to see Issei versus Sarayorg. He wanted to see the results of Isa's training. He was sure that wherever he was, Vali was at this moment hoping to see a good fight from his rival. I couldn't agree more with the governor. This match has exceeded expectations, especially considering it is an exhibition match with youth devils yet to debut officially. The young devils certainly put on a good show and have shown us great hope for the future of devils. I look forward to the end as it will surely prove gripping, said the emperor of the rating games, Dehasar Balil. He truly enjoyed the performance of these youngsters. He hoped one of them would rise to the top and give him a good match. Well, there you have it, folks, straight from the mouths of the experts. But I'm sure you're tired of hearing us talk. Let's get this match started, shouted Nod into his mic as the crowd went wild. We have the official SBMSN for this match, and I can tell you straight away that it will be a one-on-one match despite the value of the offer being 12. From the Bale corner, the only available participant but certainly the most dangerous, the strongest youth devil and the heir of the House of Bale, Sarayorg Bale, shouted Nod as cheers rang around the stadium for Sarayorg as he coolly walked out to the field and stopped in the middle. He looked in top condition despite having fought a match earlier. His arm also looked back in top shape despite having it lopped off earlier. The Phoenix tear he used fixed the damage, leaving him raring to go. He hoped his opponent didn't disappoint him. As these thoughts circled his mind, the officials in charge of the match reinforced the arena and put up a powerful shield to protect the spectators. And his opponent from the Gremory Peerage ... Oh boy, do we fight with our hands here, ladies and gentlemen. It's the fight we've all been waiting for. Here he comes, the Oppi Dragon, the pawn of Rias Gremory, and Red Dragon Emperor Issei Hayato, roared the commentator as the roof came off the arena from the cheers of the spectators, mainly the reincarnated and commoner devils, as one of their own and someone they looked to for inspiration entered the hall. More than a few people were taken aback when he walked into the arena, including his fellow peerage members, Irina, Surzech, Grafia, Venelana, Zioticus, Michiel, Gabriel, the Citri Peerage, the Vali team who were watching, Azazel, Serafal and his manager Ravel. Such was the drastic change in Is, not just in appearance but also in his aura. Adding to that was the sharp and elegant features of his face with his narrowed eyes gave him a bad boy vibe that drove the fair sect crazy. Suffice it to say that many women in the arena had difficulty controlling their blush at the sight of such a fine specimen, regardless of whether they were in relationships. Such was the case for the Gremory men, who were shedding manly tears at the fact that their usually calm and collected wives were blushing at the sight of Issei Hayato. Rias couldn't believe what she was seeing from her pawn. Had 3 months made such a change in him? The way he walked and the confidence pouring out of him made it seem like he was ready to take on the world. She blushed at the thought of how strong his body looked now and wondered how good it would feel to be embraced by him. Sona Citri, student council president of Kyo Academy and best friend of Rias, was stumped. She had always perceived herself as a creature of logic and intellect. However, even to her logical mind, the young man she witnessed now seems to take reason, bend it over a table and FCK it in the butt. She could still remember him peeping on the kendo club and getting the tar beaten out of him daily, and now he exudes an aura that screams alpha male. She still remembers her pity for Rias when she reincarnated him, as she thought he would never amount to anything and he was worthless without his sacred gear. Of course, over the months, he proved her wrong multiple times, and she had no problem admitting she was wrong. But looking at him now, she couldn't help but feel regret at having passed him over, allowing Rias to take him over her preconceived notions instead of looking at him more deeply. For her part, Ravel was blushing up such a storm that one could almost see the steam leaving her face. She had always had delusions and fantasies of her Sama that beautified him to an unnerving extent. It was her guilty pleasure, but to see him like this, looking so cool, so assured, and so ruggedly handsome, made her heart and other parts of her body that shall not be mentioned throb excitedly. She could feel his aura of DMNC from in the stands, calling for her to submit to her future king and MSDR, and boy, did she want to. Before she got carried away, though, she got a hold of herself. She needed to be patient. This was not the time to indulge in her selfish longing. Issei needed her support and planned on giving him all he could handle as she stood up and encouraged the children and fans in the Oppi Dragon section to cheer and applaud their hero. She almost fainted when she looked back at the arena and saw Issei-sama looking at her as he gave her a wink before continuing in. It was an excellent day for her, and she couldn't wait to be officially his. Ladies and gentlemen, this contest is about to get underway. The stadium has been reinforced in preparation, and powerful shields are arced around the spectator areas. Instead of the regular subspace in the dimensional gap, due to the popularity of these two and the anticipation of this fight, this match will take place right here, announced Nod. The cheers were deafening as the air of anticipation around the stadium rose to fever pitch. Issei was still making his way to the center of the arena, where Sarayorg Bale stood with Rudiger Rosenkreutz, the arbitrator of this rating game. Many of the older generation and some of the new ones noticed how eyes moved. He moved with deadly elegance, like a sharpened katana, sharp, lethal, and silent as he moved through the air. Many were impressed, not to mention a little intimidated. Most of the more zealous high-class devils turned their noses up at the sight of another unenlightened barbarian. They were sweating a bit, though, and tried not to quiver in fear at the sensation of his presence. Unknown to anyone but Issei, he was releasing short, controlled bursts of aura, not enough to knock someone out but just enough to exert his DMNC. Sarayorg, though, was grinning in anticipation. His opponent had considerably changed since their friendly spar a few months back. He looked a lot more dangerous. This fight was looking to be one he could truly enjoy. He may even have to resort to using his secret weapon, and he was excited at the prospect of that happening. As Issei finally reached the center, he stood opposite Sarayorg and stared at him unflinchingly. He could vaguely hear the arbitrator recite the rules of the match, but he was more focused on his opponent, and it seemed his opponent was the same. Sarayorg stared him in the eyes with a challenging grin instead of the emotionless look Issei wore on his. Those were the cheers of the children from the Oppi Dragon fan area, with Ravel leading them. Issei completely ignored Sarayorg and Rudiger, who were explaining the permutations of the match, as he turned to the stand with his fans. They saw him show emotion for the first time today as he gave the children a warm and kind smile and waved at them in acknowledgement and thanks for their support. Many women swooned at the sight, including his fellow peerage members, and, though she would deny this for as long as she lived, Sona Citri was quite aroused by this new Issei. Her pawn, Saji Genshiro, saw this and felt like someone kicked his puppy at seeing the woman he was majorly crushing on blush at the actions of a well-known pervert. He settled for glaring daggers at his friend, rival, fellow pervert, trying to send a mental signal. Seriously, man, come on, I thought we were friends. As he finished his greetings, he returned to his original spot to find an irritated Rudiger Rosenkreutz, who just finished his explanation, and an amused Sarayorg. After getting the agreement for a clean fight, the arbitrator left via magic circle to his spectator area and officially started the 8th match of this rating game. Before we begin, Sarayorg, I wanted to tell you that, granted, people expect me to use my boosted gear, but after these last 3 months, I must inform you that I won't be using my balance breaker, Issei said to the shock of many as he continued. I want to enjoy this match as long as I can, so I sealed my strength with the 5 tattoos on my left arm, Issei said as he showed his left arm before taking off a ring on his right hand, which shocked the devils as they saw a massive aura be released from the Red Dragon Emperor's body. What is this power? It's way higher than Issei's power was in the previous ratings game, so what caused this change in him? The commentator asked Azazel and the fallen governor replied to him. For that, we'll have to ask Vali since he knows more about Issei's transformation and power. All he could tell me was that Issei had grown a lot after facing a far more powerful dragon than even Krom Kruach. This is also why D-Drag is outside the boosted gear or past users. They are not of this world anymore, Azazel said as the audience was shocked at this moment before Issei took over. What Azazel said is true. D-Drag and I were training until we had to fight a dragon, unlike Tannen, Tiamat, or even Krom Kruach. His name was Ichnalaja, the Apocalypse Dragon, and I wouldn't be standing here had it not been for D-Drag and the past users sacrificing themselves to give me the power I needed to destroy him. So now the boosted gear is still functional, but the past users and D-Drag are no longer within it, Issei said as he had a melancholy face while recalling that day. Sarayorg nodded in agreement as he could understand that the boy, no, the man before him, had undergone so much in the past 3 months. So, will you still fight with the boosted gear? Its base form, yes, but for you, Sarayorg, I shall give you a chance to see my balance breaker, but you'll have to earn it, Issei said as he held out his left hand before the demon blade Benizakura appeared as its aura radiated with its partner. Benizakura shook in anticipation, wanting to fight the enemy before it, which made Issei amused by the sword's thirst for battle. Sarayorg smiled at this. He could tell Issei still wished to honor the duel and didn't want to end it since he was also looking forward to the battle. Very well then Issei Hayaudu, I accept the handicap, Sarayorg said as Issei chuckled in response before the previous kind and warm expression toward his fans bled off his face, leaving Issei with an impassive look as he stared directly at Sarayorg, who just shivered in anticipation. No words were spoken as both combatants measured each other with their gaze. The tension in the area was suffocating, as many people were chewing on their nails in anticipation and nervousness, waiting for something to happen. Then, let the final battle begin with that out of the way, Azazel shouted as Sarayorg got the match started. With speed that was untraceable to most, making it look like he vanished from his spot, Sarayorg flanked Issei, seeking his hand into a fist, and threw a powerful and precise jab at the right side of his head. The entire motion was less than a second, and only a select few in the audience could even follow the whole movement. To the rest, it looked like Sariorg blurred out of existence. When the time finally caught up, and it looked like a vicious haymaker was about to connect with his face, Issei, with reflexes that bordered on inhumane, reached up and caught the punch just a few inches away from his face, creating a shockwave that almost visibly spread through the air. He did so without changing his expression or moving his eyes to follow the movement. Sariorg was a little put out that his preemptive strike was stopped so effortlessly. While externally looking impassive and uncaring, Issei was internally squealing like a fanboy in his head. "Diamen, I look so FC King badass right now. I've always wanted to do something like that. It's like Aizen from Bleach stopping Ichigo with a single finger. I have to thank Guildarts for helping me perfect that." Issei thought before he went on the counterattack, like a coiled viper, as Sariorg was still in a daze at having his punch, the same punch that destroyed the spirits of many high-class devils, stopped so quickly. Issei retaliated with a powerful and perfectly executed roundhouse kick to the head that sent Sariorg skidding back. As Sariorg regained his bearings, he looked back up to see Issei still with his left leg outstretched from the kick. He held it there for a while before using his right foot as a fulcrum and calmly bringing his leg back down to the original position he had before launching the kick, looking majorly excellent while doing so. Sariorg felt something on the side of his mouth and used the back of his hand to wipe it off. As he looked at the substance, he realized it was his BLD. He could hear a pin drop as the stadium was engulfed in silence, with many varying reactions from shock, disbelief, excitement, and strangely also, "Don't ask about that last one." The shocking part wasn't that he just caught a lightning-quick punch from Sariorg, but that he did so without taking any damage, as his punches were known to be monstrously destructive. What they did know was that they were going to be in for one hell of a fight. The cheers rang through the arena as they were encouraged to put on a show. Issei then channeled magic into the blade, and the sword began to shiver in excitement. Before Issei went on the attack, he vanished. With speed that was on par with a Mao-class devil, as Sariorg barely had the time to block the attack as he coated his arms with Tauki to absorb the impact, while behind him, the arena was shaking from the blast. The sword shocked the audience until Issei leaped away as he summoned two other swords. "Equip armor, Crimson Dragon Knight," Issei said as he donned the armor Urza gave him. He didn't draw the twin swords at his side but instead stabbed the demon sword into the ground. "Equip weapons, Fire Dragon's Flames and the Ice Devil's Chill," Issei said as the two swords appeared in his hands, which surprised the many knights in the audience since they could tell that they were mighty blades until Issei picked up the demon sword again and closed his eyes as the edges glowed brightly until the swords fused to form a deadlier sword that radiated not only energy but also a dragon's fires and the devil's ice magic. Seraphal shivered as she could tell that the flames and ice from the two weapons were mighty before Issei charged at Sariorg. She was prepared for this as he met Issei's sword strikes with his punches, but the shockwave from the impact caused fire and ice to explode, either burning or freezing parts of the arena. Issei fought with speed and power as well as swordsmanship skills that the Grimoire Peerage couldn't believe since they knew Issei was more of a brawler than a swordsman. But seeing him now made them realize that he wasn't just focusing on his technique during the last few months. Issei and Sariorg smiled as they enjoyed this battle a lot, and Sariorg was amazed by the weapons. At the same time, Issei summoned his massive holy hammer, a Scalon, and even the deadly wind flame sword, which made Azazel want to study it to see how Issei could wield it so well. Once their clashes ended, the two separated as they caught their breath and collected themselves before bursting towards each other. Issei put away his weapons and met Sariorg in the center, and their fists crossed each other and impacted the other's face in a cross-counter that they held before backing off to regain their bearings and take stock of the situation. As they took their time, the commentator sprang into action. "Amazing folks. What an exhibition of pure physical combat by both young men. They evenly exchanged powerful attacks, and they barely looked out of breath. If anything, they look ready to go for more," Nod announced as Azazel nodded as well. Indeed, it was quite the demonstration of hand-to-hand combat. "I can feel the intensity of those blows from all the way here in the commentary box. What's also interesting to note is that Issei has yet to use his sacred gear, whether it means by boosting himself or by the balance breaker," Azazel stated, surprising many as they were so caught up in the battle that they didn't even notice that point. Back on the field, both fighters measured the other up. "It seems you've drastically improved since we traded blows a few months ago. Seeing you match my punches gets my BLD pumping. I haven't had a good fight in a while," Sariorg said as the force of Issei's attacks, by his weapons and punches, really caught him off guard. He didn't expect the pawn to match him head-on without his balance breaker. Maybe he was falling into one of the unsavory habits of his race, pride. "I've been working strong to reach this level. I've broken and repaired my body numerous times to attain this strength. I'm sure you understand what that means better than anyone else," Issei stated as he spoke. For the first time in this match, his deep voice had women swooning in the audience, not that he paid attention for once, as he was focused entirely on the game. Sariorg responded with a grin filled with battle. "You truly are a worthy opponent. Here I come," stated Sariorg as he shot at Issei with unimaginable speed and barreled into him. They exchanged a flurry of blows, with Sarayor getting quite a few past Issei's guards, getting him to grimace slightly from the thunderous impact of the blasts. Punches, kicks, headbutts, and throws were all on the menu, as both men used their bodies as weapons to harm the other. Due to the boost from the Tauki, Sarayor had a slight advantage over Eyes, which he took advantage of by raining as many blows upon him as he could. As Issei recovered, he decided to take it to the next level. Since you decided to summon your Tauki, I should also show off a little, Issei said as he backed away from Sarag before letting out a deep breath the audience didn't know he was holding. Release seal number 1, Issei said as one of the 5 seals on his left arm vanished. His body exploded with so much aura that Sarag felt while a powerful gravitational force was pressing his body. The Mao and the Angel and Fallen factions leaders were amazed by Issei's power level until Issei's body became more of a dragon-devil hybrid as his eyes narrowed. At the same time, his teeth and claws appeared, as well as ice and fire radiating around him as he shouted to Sarag. Saioragbel. Issei shouted in a commanding voice that shocked many of the devils, including the Gremari Peerage, as they could hear the power that radiated from those words. You said you'd fight me with all you have, correct? Then summon your sacred gear and fight me with all your power, Issei shouted, and he could tell Sarag wasn't at his best. This is a battle of warriors who enjoy fighting, not some ratings game between houses. As long as one of us still had the strength to stand and fight, this match wasn't over. This isn't about Riaz, the House of Baal, the Gremari House, or anyone else. This is about you and me. Right now, we are just 2 warriors on the field of battle. Nothing else should matter, yet I still feel you holding back a great deal. You haven't even used that weapon wrapped around your right wrist, Issei said as he continued speaking to his rival and opponent. What are you so afraid of? Why are you still holding back? Do you not acknowledge me as your opponent? Are you afraid of that lazy High Council of Devils and what they will think when you reveal your partner? Or are you more concerned with that limp DC Ked fossil with a severe case of Ertel DSFNCTN going through a middle-age crisis that he likes to cover up by flexing his political muscle and threatening and bending people to his whims to cover up his impotence? Zekrem Baal, Issei stated cheekily, with the silence that permeated the stadium painfully deafening. The spectators couldn't believe what he had just said about the most politically powerful and probably oldest devil alive, the original Great King and the creator of the power of destruction. Riaz's eyes widened to comical proportions as she couldn't believe what her pawn had just said. He could get himself executed for saying such things. She was seriously stressing out right now. She needed to get her Oni-sama and make sure nothing happened to Eyes. Similar reactions were experienced across the stadium. Some were flabbergasted, some were afraid for him. The higher-ups on the council were livid. They were almost frothing at the mouth by the disrespect shown to them by some filthy low-class devil. Azazel and Surzech did their best not to fall off their seats in raucous laughter. They'd expect nothing less from their favorite dragon, for him to have the guts to say that on a live broadcast sent throughout the underworld. Indeed, there was never a dull moment with him around. Dehasar Belial, for his part, just smirked to himself and suddenly decided to pay closer attention to this fascinating young man. Serafal just giggled mischievously at the Issei. She's been wanting to say that for years. Sekurute-chan was a funny guy, not to mention a total hottie now. A sudden gleam entered her eyes as she seductively LC-ed her lips. Issei, on the field, suddenly felt a chill go down his spine as he could tell he had attracted the gaze of a deadly devil. Grafia raised an elegant eyebrow at the young man, which was the most expression you would get from the ultimate queen. If you looked closely, though, you would see the corners of her lips twitch upward slightly. Sona sat dumbfounded, her hair comically disheveled and her glasses barely hanging onto her face as she took in what Hayaru-kun said. For him to have the audacity to insult and demean one of the most potent devils ever to live in front of so many people, he certainly had a death wish. It was the only explanation. A small treacherous part of her mind gave a little whoop of joy and agreement as Zekrem Baal and his fanatic supporters were the main obstacles in accomplishing her dream. She could picture her sister giggling mischievously at what had just occurred, which caused her to sweat drop. Yes, FCKU, you old beach. Thank you Issei Hayaru, Sona shouted in her mind to keep up her appearance and not make a fool of herself. For her part, Ravel just giggled into the back of the hand. She would expect nothing less from Issei-sama, who spoke his mind without care for the consequences and said things as they were. She wasn't afraid for him as she had complete faith that he knew what he was doing. And if any of those stuffy old fossils dare to think they have the right to lay their disgusting hands on her future MSDR, they would have to get through her first. Which won't end well for them or their future mental and physical health, thought Ravel with a sadistic sparkle in her eyes, which promised unimaginable pain to those she considered enemies that freaked out those sitting around her. Back on the field, Sarayorg's eyes were comically bulging out of their sockets, and his jaw was trying to have an NTMT encounter with the ground. His mind couldn't process the insanity that was taking place right now. Sure, he had no love for his ancestor. That man was responsible for treating him and his mother like nothing, leading to all their problems. But to hear someone have the nerve to call him out was unimaginable. He felt a little encouraged by the courage shown by Issei. He's lived in the shadow of the Baal house for so long, shedding blood, sweat, and tears to reach this point, but hearing his opponent's words sparked something in him. He was also a bit unnerved that his secret weapon was quickly discovered. I can see the look of shock and concern on your face. You don't need to worry, although it is highly appreciated. I'm not afraid of those idiots. If anything, it's the other way around. They are afraid of me, Issei said with a smirk. Seeing the confusion on his opponent's face, he decided to elaborate. Do you know why I'm still a low-class devil in rank? I can see you wondering where this is going, so let me spell it out for you. I've been a devil for about 7 months. In that time, I defeated a high-class devil in one-on-one combat, even though he underestimated me and overcame the vaunted immortality of the Phoenix clan. I achieved this in less than 3 weeks of being a devil. I fought and held back Cockabeel, a survivor of the Great War. I fought the current Hakuryuku, Vali Lucifer, the strongest host ever, to a stalemate and forced him to retreat at the peace conference. I achieved Balance Breaker in less than a month and defeated the SS-ranked Ultimate Class Stray Devil Kuroka. I also defeated the traitor Diodora Astaroth in the old Mao faction Shalba Beelzebub leader. A few weeks later, with the aid of Saji Genshuru, I defeated the Norse god Loki. Just a few months ago, I fought the leader of the hero faction and the possessor of the true Longinus Cao Cao in Kyoto and forced him to retreat with his tail between his legs while destroying one of his eyes. I know it sounds like I'm bragging, but there is a point to all this. So I'll ask you again, Sariorg Bale, why I'm still a low-class devil. Any of those achievements is enough to earn any devil a promotion test. Going by simple logic, I should be an ultimate class devil right now. Do you know why I'm not? Issei questioned with a knowing smirk on his face. He was going to enjoy this. Sariorg, try as he might, couldn't wrap his head around the argument. He knew what Issei Hayato said was correct. If any of his peers achieved that, they would get automatic promotion. He was brought back by the answer provided by his opponent. An answer he didn't think he would have reached. There only is one answer. Pure unadulterated fear, Issei declared as he explained his reasons. They are afraid of me and what I represent. I'm a commoner. My parents are average working-class citizens with no special attributes in the human world. I'm essentially a nobody, but here I am, standing across from the heir to the powerful House of Baal, trading blows evenly. I represent the faith of the simple men and women who have long been ignored. I represent the hope of the reincarnated devils treated as second-class citizens. They see me rising to the top, giving them the courage to challenge me to do the same and hope their children can have a happy future. Look at those kids sitting in my stand over there. They believe in me. They believe that I will win, and they are rooting for me. This is what they fear. If they promote me, it will show that anything is possible for those of lower rank, and my popularity throughout the underworld will carry that message through. Issei stated passionately as the people in the stands all cheered loudly at his words. They were showing the support behind his message. His words reverberated deeply with them. The people on his side who were more politically inclined, like Surzech, Azazel, Graphia, and Seraphal, realized what he did here, and they couldn't help but tip their hat at the cunning plan he cooked up. By publicly calling out the council on the issues that he did and exposing their unfair treatment of him, he aligned himself with the average devil citizens. These commoners feel similarly aggrieved. Then he fashioned himself as the champion of the commoner and now, without a doubt, garnered their support, which is immense as they are a large majority of the population but don't have much of a say due to the hierarchy of devil society. But now they had a voice, a powerful and influential devil who wasn't afraid to speak his mind and say it like it is. As it stands, his statements today have the effect of making one of two things happen. Number 1, the High Council agrees to his promotion, which elevates his status, something they were trying to prevent, and validates his message that anything is possible with strong work and determination, which will spur on those of similar class who will look to him as an example. This will also boost his support, as seeing him succeed will give him a significant following from the people he represents and give him some political power due to his sway over the majority population. Or number 2 is that they continue to deny him his promotion, which will do nothing but validate his claims and show everyone that he was right and that the council is indeed afraid of him, turning him into a martyr to the people who see him being wronged for no apparent reason. Either way, it's a win-win situation for Issei, regardless of the outcome. The High Council would have little choice, irrespective of their decision. They will lose. It was only a matter of the least damaging choice, as they will take a hit to their reputation regardless of what happens. They will have to work strong to minimize the damage. Those same 4 previously mentioned were seriously impressed. It was such a straightforward maneuver that it seemed ridiculous and suicidal on the surface. Still, in one fell swoop, he established an enormous support base and positioned himself to be a big player in the future. That's why I'm here today, Sariorg. I'm fighting for those kids who don't have a voice. I'm fighting for those people who can't fight for themselves. The question is, what are you fighting for? I could feel the turmoil within you as we exchanged fists. It would help if you put it out of your mind, though. This isn't about Zekrim Bale or Surzech Lucifer. I don't give a flying FCK about what either of them do. This is about you and me fighting with everything on the line. I acknowledge you as someone worthy of an opponent. We are similar in the way we came about. We were both called failures, which would never amount to anything, and yet we built our bodies, the foundation of our strength, to the point where those same naysayers could never hope to stand against us. We were given nothing, yet we took everything, so I ask you again. Why can I still see you hesitating? Issei asks as he continues, his voice sounding like a war drum for battle. Do you not have someone important you are fighting for? Would she not want you to put the full display of your magnificent power on display with the same body she gifted you? You need to forget about what those idiot politicians say and do what you've always done and speak with your fists. You don't need the power of destruction. Your body is destruction personified. Why hope for a power that can never hope to match your fists? I acknowledge you as the true great king, so show me what you've got. Issei shouted as he spread out his hands and dragon wings. Show me your resolve. This is the fight that these people came to see. The Great King versus the Red Dragon Emperor. This is about Sariorg Bale versus Issei Hayaudu. Stop caring about consequences, and let's tear this place down. Issei shouted to the roaring and thunderous cheers of the spectators. Sariorg, for his part, felt a huge burden was lifted off his shoulders. His opponent, Issei Hayaudu, was right. He made it this far by obliterating any obstacles that stood in his way without fear of anything. The thought of his beloved mother and the sacrifices she had made for him echoed through his mind. His eyes became a little misty as he thought of her and decided she would want him to live freely without being bogged down by silly politics. If he loses support today, he will build it up again from the bottom. His resolve hardened as he finally felt free of the metaphorical shackles he had placed on himself. He decided it was time to honor his mother and her clan. Issei Hayaudu, your words have resonated with my soul. I feel freer than I have been in a long time. I will reward you with my full power. Prepare yourself, Sariorg declared as he spoke to his partner. Regulus, are you ready? I'm always prepared to aid you, my MSTR. Sariorg held up his left arm as his golden bracelet shone brightly with a golden light. Most people curiously looked on, wondering what he was doing. Azazel had his eyebrows disappear into his hairline as he recognized the jewel on the bracelet. Balance breaker. A dazzling light spread around the field. Because of its intense light, most of the audience covered their eyes, but when the light vanished, what appeared was Sariorg wearing a golden-colored plate armor, which had a lion motif. The helm on its head had golden hair, which looked like that of a lion. There was a lion-like face on its chest, and the eyes on it glowed as if it had its consciousness. The concussive force of the release of power destroyed the ground around him. The balance breaker of the Regulus Nemia, the Regulus Ray LTHR Rex. Issei Hayaudu, I thank you from the bottom of my heart for making me serious. That's why I will reward you with my fist. Come at me with all you. Vigot. Sariorg, walking towards Issei step by step, says that out loud. An overwhelming presence surrounded him, and his armor was covered in tauki. In the commentator box, Azazel was frothing at the mouth, seeing a Longinus-class sacred gear that had been missing for years. He had many questions that needed to be answered. He didn't doubt that things would get prickly for the House of Baal for hiding a Longinus sacred gear from the leaders, especially with the peace treaty. Seeing the power roll off Sariorg, Issei laughed happily to himself. He was definitely becoming a battle maniac like a certain knuckle-headed dragon slayer from fairy tale. Marvelous. You are the real deal, Sariorg. You have my respect. Let me show it to you the only way I know how. I honestly wasn't planning on using my balance breaker in this fight, but consider this a show of respect I have towards you, so you better hold on to your hat. Issei said as he flew up straight into the air. As he reached the highest point he could, he spread his arms out and shouted, Balance breaker. An oppressive force weighed down on all those present as a blinding red light encompassed the arena. Some of the audience's more vulnerable members were having difficulty breathing. As quickly as the pressure appeared, it was lifted as all the released red light merged into a single point, where eyes was in the air, forming a large spinning of red energy encompassing him. The energy kept churning until something cut it in half before expelling it to reveal the sight within. It was awe-inspiring, which was what most of the audience felt. The gleaming red armor of the Red Dragon Emperor was on full display for all to see. But it wasn't the regular armor they were accustomed to seeing. This one looked a lot more streamlined and offered more mobility. It was also more aesthetically pleasing. The armor had changed into a mix between his balance breaker and a king's armor. Most of the armor was still dragon-looking parts, mainly on the feet and helmet, which became more human-fitting, but the top of the helmet became more like a crown, and his armor's wings disappeared and turned into a wieldy red cape. The armor's chest area became a bit more body-fit, but the audience could see that it was now made of a new material, which showed it was tough, light, and smooth. His gauntlets were red, but they became less thick and became slim. The jewels were the same, as were the eyes of the helmet. Once again, Azazel was practically salivating at the sight of what he assumed to be a subspecies balance breaker. He seriously needed to get that boy in his lab. The Oppi Dragon fan area was going wild with cheers seeing their hero in his armor. It differed from the one they were used to seeing on TV but looked way more relaxed. Ravel led them in their cheers as she smiled beautifully at seeing her idol in his armor. Let's do this, Sariorg, roared Eyes as the two of them charged each other. They met in the middle as their fists met in a clash that shook the foundations of the arena and sent shockwaves through the air. They disengaged and dove in once more for another decisive blow. On and on they went, trying to overpower the other. Fists and feet were flying as they fought for DMNC. The audience, at the stadium and home, was completely engrossed in the fight and the emotion that both fighters gave off. The LD started flying from the blow's concussive impact as more hits connected. It was now a battle of stamina and willpower. All fancy tricks and elegance were thrown out the window. It was about who could outlast the other. More and more hits landed as the dull impacting sounds reverberated throughout the arena. Bones could be heard creaking from the power of the clashes. People started to either move to the edge of their seats or stand as they could sense the end approaching. The Orc and Riaz watched in shock as Issei fought and spoke like a completely different person throughout the match. If it weren't for the sacred gear he was using, they would think he was an imposter. His strength now far outstripped anything they could ever hope to put up. It was indeed an eye-opening experience. As Issei watched proudly as the weak little boy he knew became a fine man. He wondered if this was what proud fathers felt like, especially after he enjoyed catching up with Vali and seeing the fantastic weapons, skills, and gadgets the White Dragon Emperor had obtained in that other world. Ravel looked on with a gentle smile on her face as Issei-sama fought his heart out. Seeing him now reiterated to her that she made the right choice in choosing him. She slowly put her hands together in prayer, a devil praying. The irony was not lost on her for Issei-sama's win, for she had complete and unshakable faith in him. The two competitors were staggering as they dug into the tank for their last attack. As Sariorg moved in with a brutal-looking punch, Issei activated his dragon-slaying magic. Fire Dragon King's Destruction Fist. Sariorg was too drained to get out of the way as he saw the attack coming. You win today, Hayato Issei. Thank you for a marvelous fight and for showing me the light again. Those were Sariorg's last thoughts as Issei's attack connected with his sternum, knocking him out. As Sariorg's back hit the ground, his armor dissipated. Silence. Issei released his balance breaker before walking over to Sariorg, bending down and placing a fist on his chest in gratitude. Sariorg Bale loses. He retires. This is the end of the game. Riaz Gremory team's victory, announced Rudiger Rosenkreutz. It is over. Issei Hayato defeated Sariorg Bale. The Gremory team wins, Nod shouted, and the entire stadium burst into cheers in appreciation of the spectacular fight they had witnessed. Riaz shed a few happy tears at her peerage's victory and her beloved pawns coming through for her. The rest of her peerage was happily celebrating in the medical ward. Sona Citri shook her head in disbelief. Her queen was of a similar state of mind. To think that the infamous pervert of Kyo defeated the most potent youth devil. Sona needed to review this match again in her spare time to analyze the strategies. One thing was for sure, though, she needed to keep an eye on Hayato-kun in the future. She suddenly blushed as some less than savory thoughts filled her mind. Luckily, no one but her queen noticed as her peers were busy cheering their schoolmates on. Ravel was happy to see her Issei-sama finally get the recognition he deserved. She hoped this led to his promotion, as she couldn't wait to stand by his side permanently where she belonged. As Issei took in the crowd's cheers, he turned toward the fan section of his show, where the children were situated. He smiled gently at them as they enthusiastically cheered for him. He raised his hand as a large magic circle appeared about the stand. From it fell out a multitude of Oppai Dragon merchandise, including shirts, caps, and balance breaker plushies, all signed by him. The stadium erupted in cheers as they saw his gesture toward the children who idolized him. It reverberated with them, especially those of Common BRTH and those who were reincarnated. At that moment, in their hearts, they dubbed him their champion. Issei raised his arm in victory as his name thundered across the arena. Issei, 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 Issei. It felt good to him, the recognition of his deeds and the acknowledgement of his strength. He backed in their adulation a little longer as a single thought rang through his mind. This is just the beginning, Issei said as he thanked Fairy Tail, Dryag, Vali, and his enemies in that other world who helped him get to where he is now. And now that the battle was over, it was time for the celebration. Later, the atmosphere was celebratory in the infirmary housing the remaining members of the Gremory peerage as they celebrated their victory in a grueling and strong-fought raiding game. Although they had a previous triumph against Sona Citri, it couldn't be a satisfying win. This one gave them all a feeling of pride and accomplishment, defeating the most potent youth devil to put them on many people's radar. They were joined by their King Riaz, Bishop Asia, Angel Arena, and the Phoenix Princess Ravel. Riaz was in tears as she congratulated and thanked her servants for fighting so strong on her behalf. Has anyone seen Issei? Zenobia asked with a tilt of her head. Her question elicited many emotions from the room's occupants, mostly positive. They were all waiting with bated breath to see their friend again. He made a stop at the other infirmary. He should be here in a few minutes, Azazel answered as he stepped into the room, followed by Surzech, Grafia, and little Milikas. Riaz won Sama. Congratulations on winning. He cheered Milikas with an adorable smile, making many girls coo at his cuteness. Riatan, Oni-chan is so proud of you, Surzech said with manly tears running down his face as he made to glomp his sister before the ever-reliable Grafia intercepted him by way of a hand to his ears, followed by a painful twist. Surzech-sama, you are the Mao Lucifer. Please show proper etiquette, Grafia said with a long, suffering sigh accompanied by the shrieks of pain from Surzech, which made the members of the Orc chuckle uncomfortably. Seems like you guys are having fun in here, Issei said as he walked into the room, accompanied by the atomic blushes of the females, including Grafia, although she had more control. He still had the same breathe and boots from earlier, but now swapped out the combat vest for a white button-up shirt with the top button undone, giving them a glimpse of a delicious neckline adorned by his dragon fang necklace. Over the shirt, he wore a black LTHR jacket that extended to his knees with whitish-gray fur along the collar. All in all, he exuded the aura of a terrific bad boy, which a particular lightning dragon user influenced. Riaz immediately cried, as all the emotions she'd been bottling up these last few months came rushing back as she barreled towards him in a hug. As she cried into his chest, apologizing for what happened and asking for forgiveness, Issei smiled and patted her on the shoulder. "Riaz, it's fine. I'm not PSS off, nor am I holding a grudge," Issei said as he took out a handkerchief and cleaned her eyes. Riaz gasped before asking, "Oh really? But I thought you'd hate you for that day and held a grudge against you and the others," Issei asked as Riaz nodded before Issei sighed and sat Riaz on a chair before he snapped his fingers as Virgo appeared behind him and got on her hands and knees before Issei sat on her, making Virgo blush as she was happy with this gesture from her MSDR. Libra showed up as well as she began to sit envelop Issei's head as she pressed his head into her bust, causing the men to be amused by this while the girls were a bit annoyed by this until Issei then began to speak. "Thank you, Virgo. You make a wonderful chair, and if you fall, I'll punish you tonight," Issei said as Virgo blushed and thanked Issei for giving her such love, which made Azazel snicker as he realized what Vali meant when he told him about Issei's new familiars. "Oh, and thanks for the bub pillow, Libra. I always enjoy the performances you put on." Libra smiled as she then leaned into his ear and whispered something too quiet for them all to hear. Issei began to chuckle before GRPNG her left bust, causing Libra to smile and let out a long, satisfied sigh. "I'd love to see your show later, but for now, it's time for business. Pleasure comes later to those who wait," Issei said. Libra smiled and nodded, then leaned forward and pressed more of his head into her bust. Akino blushed and Elsie kept her lips behind her sleeve as she was getting turned on by this while seeing that Issei was also giving Virgo love and punishing her, which made her masochistic side want to take the maid's place and enjoy the feeling of Issei on her back. Ravel looked and saw Libra look directly at her before the constellation nodded her head as she then began to massage Issei's scalp. Issei enjoyed it as he then looked at the others and explained his feelings towards the orc. "Now look, I wasn't exactly happy when you called me an idiot, and then the barrage of insults came. But I expected you to understand my pain at least since I was there for all of your troubles and helped you, and yet you never once asked me how I felt or about my feelings. Granted, I was mad for the first month. Still, after the second and third months, I began to understand that it was also my fault that I didn't tell you all that Rainier affected me so much. Still, thanks to Vali, D-Drag, and a few other friends I made along the way, I could move on and let my heart be healed by friends who were there for me at my lowest moments and helped me get back on my feet," Issei said as he recalled the friends and loved ones he had made at Edenland and Fairy Tale before Issei got up from Virgo, Libra letting him go early before he stood up and walked towards Riaz before FL seeking her forehead. "Oh, there, that's my anger released," Issei said as Riaz held her forehead in hopes of healing it, but could also tell that Issei didn't have any anger towards them, which made relief fill the orc members' hearts as he said those words. They thought things could finally go back to normal. That is until they noticed that Issei wasn't drooling over Riaz like he usually does or making inappropriate remarks about breasts. If anything, he looked impassive in her presence. "Now granted that I forgive you all, but that doesn't mean this," Issei said as he gestured to himself and the girls as he continued. "Our relationship is on a sheet of thin ice. I want to give you all another chance, but I don't know if I can ever feel the same way I did. I care about you all, and I swear I'll protect you from harm, but as far as our relationships go, I wouldn't say we're a couple, which is why I want to rebuild our relationship. I still cherish the memories I made with all of you, and I don't want to lose that, even when I become a king. I still want to see you all achieve your dreams and longing, so I'll help you, but if you want to restore our relationship, you must make the first move. I'll be open to speaking to you about anything and even going on dates with you, but what happens between us is up to you, girls." This made the girls who heard Issei feel some relief as they were happy to be given a second chance to see Issei and restore their relationship once again, so they knew they didn't want to screw it up a second time. Surzech, Grafia-san and of course little Milikas. "It's so good to see you again," Issei said politely towards Surzech and Grafia before patting Milikas's head, making the little boy go into a temporary state of bliss. The former smiled as he put his arm around Issei's shoulder while his wife politely greeted Ai's back. "Good evening, Ai-sama. Congratulations on a magnificently fought battle," Grafia said as Issei blushed lightly at the praise from someone he held in high regard. "Thanks, Grafia-san, that means a lot coming from you. Seriously, Issei, that fight was for the ages, not to mention your little speech in the middle. Do you know what kind of stir it caused among the higher-ups?" Surzech said as Issei raised a brow and replied, "Stir? I don't know what you mean. I just spoke my mind like I always do. I thought people were used to that part of me," Issei replied with a sly smile and eyes shining with mischief, making Azazel and Surzech burst out laughing. "It's safe to say that your little training retreat paid dividends," Azazel said, and Issei nodded in agreement. "Yeah, it did. I feel better than I ever have in my life. Plus, I learned a whole lot about the supernatural world as well. The boosted gear is a well of information if you know where to look. Issei replied with a subtle wink to Azazel, who caught on quickly to his meaning. Eyes Nai-sama, you were so cool out there, Milica said with stars shining in his eyes as he gazed at Issei with adoration, making Surzech crouch in the corner with a storm cloud over his head as he drew shapes into the ground with his finger while saying how Issei was stealing his son away, making everyone in the room sweat drop at the powerful Mao while Grafia's eyebrow was twitching irritably. Issei ignored the drama, picked up little Milica's, and put him on his shoulder. He then regaled him with tales of his astonishing victories, making the little boy gush with excitement. The girls in the room cooed at the adorable scene. Grafia just smiled softly, seeing two of her favorite boys get along. She would never say it out loud, but she had a bit of a soft spot for Issei. He was like a goofy little brother you couldn't help but love. You cut it pretty close today. You're normally pretty punctual, so why were you late? Azazel asked curiously before Issei sheepishly scratched his head as he responded. Yeah, while I was training, I irked a powerful barrier spell to contain any damage I caused. A few hours before the match, I released it. But as soon as I released it, I found someone waiting for me on the other side. Issei said he didn't lie but didn't tell them the truth. For now, they didn't need to know about the time dilation field. The others were surprised that he could use barrier magic. As it wasn't familiar to them, their surprise suddenly turned to alarm at the prospect of someone lying in wait for eyes. Was it the Chaos Brigade? Surzech asked. His earlier good mood vanished, and he was in full leader mode. Issei just shook his head negatively. No, I doubt it, and if anything, it was the old Mao faction. I took care of the problem, though, so there's no need to worry, Issei said assuringly. The adults in the room could sense that he didn't give them the entire story, but they knew they would get it later in a more private location when he signaled them with his eyes. Once the worry passed, things returned to normal with a boisterous conversation between Surzech and Azazel. Issei went over to Gasper and praised him for his bravery, making the damper sob in happiness at his senpai's praise. The others got a word or two of congratulations as they were happy to have Issei back into their lives, hoping to rekindle and restore the relationship they destroyed because of their selfishness. As the festivities continued, Issei walked over to his manager, who sat at the corner of the room. Her face lit up in joy at seeing his, which she quickly tried to mask with a facade of indifference. Issei just chuckled at the tsundere tendencies of his appealing blonde manager. Hey Ravel, good work today, not only in the stands but for organizing everything just as I asked. It turned out better than I imagined, thanks to your dedication. I'm proud to call you my manager, Issei commended with a warm and kind smile as he patted the head of Ravel, whose face ignited an atomic blush along with the most blissfully happy expression on her face at the praise from the man she loved. It was like her greatest dreams had come true. There were even tears at the corner of her eyes as she basked in the presence and adoration of her beloved. Anything for you, Issei-sama, Ravel said, still lost in the sensation of the praise and head patting from Issei, who just chuckled wryly at the somewhat childish behavior from the resident Aju-sama. Issei then led Ravel towards a more private area. After making sure they were alone and no one was around, Issei spoke to Ravel. Ravel Phoenix, I know I've been gone for so long, and in that time, I realized how much you meant to me and that you had feelings for me. Still, I was worried you'd hate me too because of my past with Rainier, and I know this may seem like I'm rushing this, but one thing I learned in my training was that life is too short, and I don't want to have any regrets, Issei said as he got on one knee, making Ravel gasp at the motion before Issei reached into the inside of his jacket and presented a silver ring with an appealing dark blue gem the same shade as Ravel's eyes. Issei, is this? Ravel asked as Issei nodded, held out the ring, and asked the question that Ravel had been waiting for so long. Yes, Ravel Phoenix. Will you marry me? Issei asked. Ravel was shocked by the question before crying joyful tears and nodding. Yes, what took you so long to ask me? Ravel said as Issei slipped the ring on her finger before embrace under the moonlight while Azazel blew his nose from the romantic scene. I'm so proud of myself. I raised him well, Azazel said as he tried to stop the tears while Surzech cried before hugging the fallen governor. Grafia smiled at the scene. She was happy to see that the one she saw as a little brother proposed to the girl who stood by his side and loved him for who he was. Grafia also hoped to be invited to the future wedding while Riser, Ruvel, and Lord Phoenix were crying tears of joy as they were happy for the young girl. At the same time, Lady Phoenix smiled and mentally cheered for her daughter, getting ahead of the other girls and making her move. Unfortunately, things weren't going to be so peaceful, thanks to the Chaos Brigade seeing the matchup, so Cao Cao turned to a book of dark magic he had found when exploring different types of magic to assist them. This led Cao Cao to find the book he was looking for, thanks to the help of his second-in-command, Jorg. Jorg had heard of a book being sealed away by a powerful mage who had MSTR dark magic and used that magic to create many sorts of demon-banned magic that were even on par with a god, such as time freezing. Knowing that he and his army needed the power of said magic to give them a fighting chance, Zareth spoke to Hades and asked him to lend him the book after learning that Hades himself had kept the book within the land of the dead the whole time due to the caster asking the god of death to keep the book out of the hands of those who would dare abuse it. However, Hades allowed Cao Cao to wager his life to obtain the book since there were others who desired the powers of said book. Still, in the end, they all fell and died in Hades' realm. This brings us to now, as Cao Cao has breathed heavily on the ground, lying in a puddle of his BLD that would have killed a normal person. But Cao Cao gritted his teeth as he slowly got back to his feet to see a simple black book written in an unknown language glowing a dark purple aura until the book shouted at Cao Cao. It doesn't matter. You can try all your tricks, but I will be the one who brings humanity back their freedom from the supernatural world, and I will sacrifice everything to save humanity, even becoming a demon if I must. That's right. Yes, that's right. The shout echoed through the land of the dead, and all was silent at that moment before the book began to laugh. Its pages began to fly out of its cover and surround the hero before a figure began to form in front of Cao Cao. The being was a tall, lean young man with dark purple hair that was long and wavy, reaching his shoulders even while the majority was tied up in a very large ponytail. Additionally, his messy bangs all but obscure his dark, slanted eyes. For clothing, the man before him donned a long, black jacket trimmed with a light-colored flame pattern. The lapels were a matching lighter color as well. The cuffs of his jacket are rolled up, revealing a light-colored inside, which contrasts the black outside of his jacket and has a black line cutting through the edge of the fabric. The jacket itself is tattered and splits into 4 torn fabric segments at the tail. Beneath the jacket, he wears a frilly black V-neck shirt, lined in a lighter color, that closes down the middle and is adorned with a buckle just below his clavicle. Just below this is a piece of fabric that he keeps over this shirt but under his jacket, that circles the majority of the lower half of his torso. The rest of his attire is simple, consisting of light-colored brief that lay lazily over the top of rather plain black boots and have, on each leg, a seam running down the middle, as well as 2 pairs of buckles that form an X on the thigh and lower calf. However, the buckles on each thigh later disappear, leaving only the ones on each calf. Well then, allow me to introduce myself. I am Margir, but you may call me Tartaros, and if you truly are willing to sacrifice everything for humanity, then I must test you to see how far you really are willing to go. Tartaros said as Cao Cao saw dark magic leave the pages as they positioned themselves to spear Cao Cao. The leader of the hero faction merely stabbed his spear into the ground and held his hands out. Let's begin, Cao Cao said. Tartaros smiled as he snapped his fingers, causing the power to stab Cao Cao and enter his whole body. Cao Cao bit his tongue to prevent himself from yelling as he felt his body being reborn under the magic's influence. This led to Tartaros smiling as he patted the boy's head. Do not worry, Cao Cao, now that you have me, nothing will stand in our way. We will save humanity and bring destruction to all of our enemies. Tartaros said as Cao Cao smiled and nodded as he was feeling something new inside of his being. Cao Cao feels that he's becoming a real god, one that shall smite all who stand in his way. Cao Cao, the leader of the hero faction, is no more. Now, the leader has become the supreme king of humanity. Now, you are ready to become the savior of humanity, so tell me, are you ready to wreak havoc on your enemies? Tartaros asked as Cao Cao smiled with a wide grin before replying to his partner. Yes, but I do not wish to be Cao Cao anymore. Cao Cao was a fool, and so I wish to be reborn with a new name. Call me Anksaram. The newly named Anksaram said as Tartaros smiled at his partner's new name. How fitting. Issei was sitting at a small cafe with a cup of warm tea. He had grown to enjoy tea in the morning because it helped him relax and enjoy the quiet before the others in town began to make noise. Would you like anything else, MSDR? Virgo asked as she stood next to her MSDR with her eyes, wanting to be given orders until Issei smiled at the girl and patted her head. If you want something to do, then tie yourself up for being so useless, Issei said as Virgo blushed at the orders before taking her rope and tying herself up before she handed one end to her MSDR, who pulled it, making the rope tighten around Virgo's body, which made her gasp and moan at the pleasure that her MSDR was giving her. Yes, I apologize for being so useless. Virgo moaned lewdly as she enjoyed the pleasure even more until a chuckle was heard from someone who was amused by the show before him. I have to admit, it's amusing seeing you be a SDSD on your masochistic spirit while you enjoy the company of your other 2 spirits. The person said as Issei turned to see Vali walking towards the duo before sitting across from Issei and smiling at him. So I hear this past month has been pretty hectic for you, huh? Vali asked as Issei nodded before Virgo brought some tea to Vali while remaining tied up, much to the dragon's amusement as Issei decided to pull Virgo back to his side. Thank you for serving, Virgo, but we need some privacy. Dragon to dragon. I promise to continue our session later, Issei said as Virgo nodded in understanding as she was sent back to her key before Issei took another sip of his tea. I have to admit, when you asked me to meet you in a cafe, I wasn't expecting a nice one like this. Does the staff even know that you are a dragon? Vali asked. Issei didn't say anything as he pointed to the back of the cafe, where the staff blushed as they admired the red and white dragon emperors in their restaurant. The staff owner is a mage who enjoys making places where supernatural beings can be themselves, so the staff here are well aware of who we are, Issei said as he winked at one of the girls. The girl blushed at the wink, which made the other girls jealous. At the same time, Vali just chuckled at his rival's actions. And to think you weren't this confident back when you asked Urza on a date, Vali said, earning a light glare from Issei before he adopted a teasing grin. Oh, really? This coming from the guy who almost blew up his first date with a redhead stalker? Issei asked Vali, blushing. Of the two dragons, Issei had the most dating experience, while Vali had none, so Vali needed Issei's help with advice on dating the Pharisek. Oh, really? And this coming from the guy who tried to beat Kana in a drinking contest for Embrace. Oh, you want to do this, Mr. Butt Lover? I happen to know that you really enjoyed looking at Altair's butt when she was getting some books from the library. And what about you when Brandish nearly suffocated you with her bust after enhancing them with her magic? Hey, those breasts were like pillows, and your one talk since you loved Demaria's lap pillow when she kicked your butt. I'll have you know that her legs were soft, and she caught me off guard. The first time I believed that, but the second and third time. Now that's just you letting her get you between her thighs. Issei and Vali argued while the female staff giggled at the two, as they could tell that they were good friends. The two dragons eventually shared a good laugh until they sighed in relief as they took a sip of their respective drinks. Issei finished his first before asking Vali, "So, how have things been going for you lately? Did you finally confess to Kuroka and ask her out?" Vali finished his drink as he nodded in response. "Yep, you wouldn't believe how happy she was that I confessed to her. She really wanted to make kittens with me so quickly, but I stopped her and wanted to build a relationship with her that was real. After being in a real relationship with the others back in Earthland, I really do want a real relationship with someone who loves me for me." Issei smiled at his brother and all but BLD as Issei patted his back. "Hey, that's why you got me to help you out. I'm happy for you, Vali. You've really changed since our 3-month trip. You're a lot more sociable now. Huh, like you want to talk. You've changed, too. Anyway, why are we talking about my love life? What's going on with you and the orc? I heard you finally got promoted to high class. I'm surprised they didn't give you ultimate class since your power is that of a Mao or even a super Mao if you used your full power," Vali said as he knew Issei was stronger than he was, and the 5 seals on his arm kept his full power intact so he didn't crush anyone within range of his aura. Vali and Issei were able to clash without any repercussions in Earthland, but now that they were back home, they had to be careful in using their full power since they could be seen as major threats to the factions. Issei already knew this since he could see in the eyes of the Devil Council that they were afraid of him due to his performance in the Baal Peerage ratings game. "Well, the reason they didn't give me ultimate class is because they want to see what kind of leader I would become for my future peerage. Sure, I've never had a peerage before, but I don't mind since my popularity with the people of the underworld has skyrocketed due to me calling out the council on the live broadcast. In contrast, the council had no choice but to give in to the pressure unless they wanted a rebellion with the people going up against them," Issei said as he chuckled at the memory of their faces. They had anger and frustration over a boy who was much younger than them and was able to make them bend to his demands. "I'm starting to think you spent too much time with the old man and the lightning idiot since you are starting to show their annoyance with politics and make them bend to your demands," Vali said as he could tell that Issei had spent a lot more time with Makarov Dreyar and Laxus since Issei had become a lot stronger and became more of a Diablo dragon. "Oh, come on. I'm not that bad, and at least you're still keeping your shirt on even after hanging out with Natsu and Gray, especially since you did all that training to MSDR your ice devil magic," Issei said as Vali looked at his cess to see that his shirt was still on, much to his relief since he had developed the habit of losing his shirt due to his training to MSDR ice devil magic. "Yeah, true. Anyway, how's your married life with Ravel now? It's SCK that I had to miss the wedding due to me dealing with Chaos Brigade." Vali said that he was hoping to make it to Issei and Ravel's wedding since he was happy for them, especially since he received an invite to the wedding. Unfortunately, due to the Chaos Brigade being secretive lately, the White Dragon Emperor had to investigate what they were doing. "Well, being married to Ravel is an amazing experience, especially since Ravel may act shy around me, but man, she is a panther in the sheets," Issei said as Vali whistled at this before Issei asked the White Dragon Emperor, "So what exactly is Chaos Brigade up to nowadays? We haven't seen much of them ever since we got back from our training trip." Issei said that he was surprised but happy that the Chaos Brigade didn't crash the wedding. "I honestly don't know. Chaos Brigade has been working on something for a while now, but all I could get was that it was some strange magic that had even made Rysam afraid of Cao Cao, but I don't know much more than what I just told you," Vali said as Issei pondered this information before asking his friend, Do you think it might be something from Earthland?" Issei asked, with Vali being shocked before shaking his head. "No, but I do believe we should be concerned and wary of the upcoming days. Something tells me that we're in for a tough battle this time," Vali said before deciding to change the subject. "However, now that business is done, I need to ask you for a really big favor." "Oh, what's up?" Issei asked as Vali was nervous before he asked for the favor. "I need you to join me and Kuroka on a date in Kyoto." "That's it. Do you need a wingman? What were you so nervous about?" "Of course, I'd be happy to help," Issei said as he placed his tea down and asked for the details. "So, what's the problem?" "It's because the one in Kyoto is a special festival known as the Nine Tails Festival where Yasaka and Kanu will be able to enjoy themselves. But the problem is that there are rumors in the G-Vine that the Chaos Brigade will attack them. Kuroka is nervous since it's her first time being in charge of security at the festival, and she wants some extra help, so I suggested you. It's really important to Kuroka since that'll allow Yasaka to see that Kuroka is serious about her responsibilities due to Yasaka giving her a second chance after Kuroka kidnapped her." Vali explained that Issei knew that Kuroka could use some help with the festival. Plus this would be a good time for Ravel and himself to enjoy Kyoto again and see the people. I'm in. I'll have to check with Ravel first, but I do like the invite, Issei said as Vali thanked Issei for the help. The two spent a bit more time at the cafe until they paid the bill and left as they went to get ready for the festival. Issei smiled as he walked down the streets of his hometown, happy that he was back home while waving at a few of the town's residents. During the past month, Issei and Ravel were married, and the two are getting adjusted to being a married couple, as well as Issei's role as a king now that he has his own peerage set. Issei was glad that he could not only get the rank he deserved but also fight Seirag Bale and catch up with his old friends. Issei even confessed to his parents about everything from the day he was killed by Rainier up to the most recent events. He was surprised to see that they already knew about his new life, especially after chatting with Azazel at the parent-teacher conference. Flashback. Wait, you knew this whole time? How? Issei asked, shocked, as were the orc, who thought they were unaware of the supernatural world until Mickey giggled at their reaction. Well, we had our suspicions when something was up with you all leaving for so long about club activities, the orc moving into our home, the renovations, and also the new staff and members of your club, and so on. However, we saw that you were well, Issei, so we didn't ask or say anything and continued to feign ignorance. Mickey said as Riaz was shocked by this before asking. But that doesn't explain how you knew about us being devils and such. This was answered by Goru, who decided to explain. Well, it was actually your teacher Azazel, who is a nice man when you get to know him, when we went to speak to Issei during the parent-teacher conference. He thought it would be best if we knew just what Issei had done and how much he's going through. Goru said as he placed a hand on Issei's head, and he then ruffled his hair like he did when Issei was a young boy. And we couldn't be more proud of you, Issei. You've grown into such a wonderful young man, Goru said before slinging an arm around Issei and giving him a knuckle sandwich on the head. Besides, how else would we be able to make it to the wedding between you and Ravel? Goru said as Ravel was blushing from the fact that she was still going to be married to Issei while Mickey snickered at her husband before holding out a hand. By the way, dear, I won the bet, Mickey said as Goru grumbled before handing some money to his wife while she chuckled at her husband's face. Wait, did you guys bet on who I would marry? Issei asked as Mickey explained. Well, your father and I made a bet on who you'd marry first. I suggested either Asia or Ravel since you seem to have a better relationship with them than the other girls. At the same time, your father said that Akino or Irina would have been your first wife. Mickey explained that Akino, Asia, and Irina were imagining themselves at a wedding in place of Ravel marrying Issei. Akino would have gone with a Japanese wedding style while Irina and Asia were blushing at the idea of a church wedding with Michael as the priest of said wedding. Still, Issei was glad he didn't have to hide and lie to his parents anymore. As he hugged the two parents who were by his side and loved him for who he was, Issei was happy to make them proud of him. In flashback, Issei made it to his home and entered it to see Ravel humming in the kitchen, listening to some music on her phone before Issei had an idea to mess with his wife. Issei snuck behind her cautiously and wrapped his arms around her waist, which made Ravel stiffen up until Issei removed one of the earbuds and whispered, "Hello, my lovely phoenix. How are you doing?" Issei asked before he began nibbling on her neck, making Ravel try to stifle her laugh until she laughed from the tickling as she stopped her lover's assault. Hey, no teasing me while I'm cooking. I don't want to burn down the house accidentally, Ravel said as she finished her cooking before turning around and embraced Issei's lips. So, how was your date with your boyfriend? Vali is doing well, and he invited us to the Nine Tails Festival. Apparently, Kuroka is in charge of security and wants us there to join as both a wingman and extra security detail. Plus, it'll be a good night for us since I heard we could also visit the shrine in Kyoto, especially since I wanted to bring you sometime during a special event. Issei said as Ravel was shocked by this opportunity before smiling at the idea. Really? I've always wanted to visit Kyoto. I'd say we should go, Ravel said in excitement before seeing Issei's amused expression as she coughed into her fist. I meant to protect the innocent from harm and to ensure the safety of an ally. Issei chuckled at his wife before embraced her lips. Sure. Why don't we have some breakfast and chat about the festival? Issei said as he brought the food to the table. Ravel nodded and headed towards the table as well. The two began to chat about their plans for the day while Issei also explained what Vali told him about the Chaos Brigade. I'm worried about what they're up to, especially since Cao Cao isn't the kind of guy who lies down and doesn't plan an attack. He's up to something. What is he planning? I don't know, but what I do know is that it can't be good, Issei said as Ravel placed a hand on his hands. Hey, remember when you said we were a team? Ravel asked, which got Issei to nod in her direction. Ravel smiled in response. Then let me in, and trust me. I may not be as strong as you, but what I lack in power, I make up for with my brain. Besides, between the two of us, I'm the smart one. Issei chuckled as Ravel FLC-ed his nose lightly. You're not wrong about that, Issei said as he continued to chat with Ravel about anything that interested them. Some of the other girls watched them with a bit of jealousy, especially Riaz Gremory, who's been feeling very jealous of Ravel due to her wanting to be the one who married Issei. But deep down, her heart told her that she was unworthy of being the one to marry Issei after what she did to him. Issei was talking to them again and made time to hang out with them, but seeing Issei and Ravel as a married couple made a few of the girls, like Rias, feel incredibly jealous at seeing the two of them married to one another. If I hadn't exploded like that and asked Issei about his pain, would I have married him instead? Rias pondered, but she knew it was just wishful thinking. Hey, Rias, why don't you come over and eat with us? Issei called out as Rias smiled and joined them at the table, as she was happy to be at least still involved in the life of the one she loved. However, little did they know that this was just the calm before the storm. A portal opened in an unknown location as a knight with crimson red hair walked out. She surveyed the area before pulling out a bell and ringing it, then nodded at the image she saw in the plain field. Issei was here, and so was Vali. It seems the spell worked, the crimson-haired knight said, as a scoff was heard from behind. Was there ever any doubt, Ezra? It would be best if you had some more faith in Altair's magic. After all, she surpasses many of the great mages because of her knowledge. A woman said as it was none other than Demaria Yesta. She smiled while wearing her knight armor before two more people emerged from the portal. Yes, we can bicker like children if that is what you want, but we have a task at hand. We were sent here to warn Issei and Vali of the vision I saw and an ancient evil appearing in their world. Altair said as another woman emerged from the portal. Altair is right. We must find Issei and Vali to warn them of the danger they are about to face, Brandish said as she looked at Altair and nodded. The magician then pulled out a book and muttered a couple of words before the book's pages flew out as a small red and white dragon pointed them both in different directions. Well, need to split up. Ezra and I will follow the trail to Issei. You and Demaria go to Vali. Well, be able to cover more ground that way, Brandish said as Altair nodded and took Demaria with her before the god soul wielder yelled to Urza. Hey, Ezra, don't forget to embrace your dragon stud to tell the red-haired girl that he's the one who devoured your strawberry cake. Demaria yelled as she ran as fast as she could from the angry slashes of an enraged Urza while Brandish sighed in annoyance at the girl's foul language before Brandish used her magic to make her body a giant. She then grabbed Urza and walked away from Altair and Demaria. The two groups are on missions to speak to their loved ones and warn them of the dangers they are about to face. Hopefully, they weren't too late. Kao's brigade. My brothers and sisters, Cao shouted as he looked at his fellow heroes and smiled at their loyalty towards him. I know many of you have been wondering when we shall make our next move, and I will say that for the past month, I've been preparing for our next attack to be at the Yokai faction, where there shall be a special festival that will be a very special day for Yasaka's daughter Kanu, so why don't we give her a special gift by taking her mother away from her permanently? The rest of the heroes cheered as they were looking forward to this while Jean was nervously shifting her legs as she couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong with the way Cao acted ever since he returned with that DMN book and locked himself away experimenting with said magic along with Rizvim, who she hasn't seen in a while as well. It has come to my attention that even with Kao's break and our sacred gears, we will never truly be able to combat the forces that the supernatural will throw our way. And after witnessing Issei Hayadu's victory over the Bale Devil, it only seems fair that we evolve as Issei did, which means sacrificing something far more than our bodies. Cao explained as he lifted a glass filled with some wine in the air. But first, a toast to the beginning of a new chapter in the hero faction's goals to save humanity, Cao said as the others cheered and drank their glasses empty, except for one who didn't trust Cao. Something is definitely wrong here, and I don't like it, Jean said. Jorg felt the same, and he silently dumped his glass into a potted plant near him. Then, Jean looked up to see that the others around them began to groan and clench their stomachs. A massive aura began to envelop all of them, even Heracles. The members of the hero faction yelled in pain as if something was happening to them before they were all slowly changing as their bodies transformed into something more demonic. What is this? Jean stuttered as she backed away from the crowd. Jean summoned a sword and readied herself for a fight. Cao, what are you doing to them? You are turning them into demons, Cao said as he interrupted her sentence. Yes, it became clear to me that after I was reborn, I was being held back by my human shell. But now that I have embraced this power, I'm thinking I should have tried to find the book years ago. And with this gift, the others will soon realize that they shall become better as well. But this goes against what the hero faction stands for. We're supposed to be saving humanity, not destroying it. Jean yelled as Jorg joined her side. Sometimes one must make a sacrifice for the greater good, and this is that sacrifice, Cao said as he smiled at his transformed comrades. And look at them now. They've been reborn under the gift I gave them, Cao said as he looked almost proud as the demons began to roar. With Heracles being the largest one, he roared into the air and punched his fists together, creating a small shockwave before they all turned to Jean and Jorg. We need to run, Jorg shouted as he grabbed Jean and teleported them outside of the base. The demons roared and charged, trying to capture their friends and convert them to join them. Where can we even run to? There's nowhere we can hide from Cao. Oh yes, there is. Hang on, Jorg shouted as he chanted a spell that formed a yellow bubble shield around them, and some of the demons began to get closer to them until Jorg shouted. Now, a bright light covered the area as the two vanished out of sight, making the demons roar and rage at their comrades for running away and betraying their group until Cao walked towards them. Don't worry about them. They'll soon realize that resistance is futile and return to join us. For now, it's time to help you all become accustomed to your powers and new forms, which means it's time to prepare for war," Cao Cao said, and the demons around him roared and cheered. They were more than happy to train if that meant sooner or later they'd paint the world red with the BLD of the supernatural world. Meanwhile, with Issei and Co., Issei and Ravel were making preparations for their date at the festival when a massive aura appeared on the rooftop of the Hayato residence. The orc headed to the rooftop and looked to see Jean and Jorg coughing a bit of BLD. Jorg looked at the orc and chuckled. "I guess this is the part where I surrender, yes," Jorg said as Issei put away his ice devil's chill before grabbing Jorg and pinning him to the door of the rooftop. "Give me a DMN good reason not to drop you and Jean from the rooftop," Issei said as Jorg coughed as he spoke to Issei. "Be because you and the others won't be ready for what's coming," Jorg said as Issei looked at the magician's eyes before he called Asia over. "Asia, make sure these two don't die. Aquino, Zenobia, Tiba, take them to the holding cell," Issei ordered as the four did as they were ordered until Issei looked at Riaz and Irina. "Call Michael and Surzech, as well as Azazel. Tell them it's about Jorg and Jean. They seem to have some valuable information. I'll leave it to you," Issei said as he began to walk away. Riaz stopped him. "Whoa there. And where do you think you are going?" "That's simple. Ravel and I have a date with the Yakai faction later this week, and I'm taking Ravel out for some shopping and a nice dinner before the festival," Issei said as he left the rooftop with Ravel, who seemed to be happy that Issei was still on for their shopping date. Riaz stuttered about what had just happened before her until Irina patted her back. "It's okay, Riaz. It just looks like Issei has other priorities now. He still cares for the war, but he did make a deal to assist the Yakai faction with the security at the festival," Irina said as Riaz sighed but nodded. "I know, but I was hoping he would be part of the meeting with me, like back in the peace conference and such," Riaz said. She felt a tad bit lonely until Irina patted her back some more as the two began to contact Michael, Surzech, and Azazel. Their lives were about to get hectic some more. A few hours later. "So you mean to tell me Cao Cao transformed the entire hero faction into a demonic army and is planning on attacking the festival at the Yakai faction?" Riaz asked Jorg as he gave a simple nod. "Yes, Cao Cao has completely lost it, and I do believe that he will only longing to rebuild the world in his image once he defeats the Biblical Alliance and the Dragon Emperors. That's what drove Cao Cao to find that book when I warned him of the consequences that came with using such power," Jorg said as Riaz groaned while listening to Jorg for the past hour, which would have been more bearable had Issei been there at her side like he usually was during the other meetings. "It doesn't matter what you say because it doesn't change the fact that you literally released a powerful and dangerous magic into our world once again," Riaz shouted as Jorg groaned as he replied to her. "That doesn't have to mean you got to rub it in my face. And I'm sorry, but Jean and I were busy trying to escape, otherwise we would have brought you a peace offering," Jorg said sarcastically. Riaz stomped out of the room, and then Jorg looked at Asia and asked, "Trouble in paradise with the Red Dragon Emperor since he's married to the Phoenix heiress and not her?" Jorg asked as Asia stopped her healing on Jean before turning to him and asked, "How did you know? Just because we weren't there doesn't mean we didn't hear about it. The G-Vine carried a lot of gossip, so it was easy to piece together what was true and what wasn't true," Jorg said as he sat up in his bed before cracking his neck. "Also, you are probably wondering why I'm not trying to escape, and you answer that I don't have anywhere to go. The hero faction is destroyed and corrupted because Cao Cao and Rise from Lucifer are either missing or dead, meaning there's no point in fighting anymore. I'll take my punishment as a man, but knowing Jean, she'll try to fight back since her pride wouldn't accept her being saved by the same faction she's been trying to destroy and betraying the angels," Jorg said as he manifested a magic aura on his body but groaned as he let his body rest to recover from his injuries. Asia was surprised by this before Jorg spoke to her. "I can tell you probably did something to strain your relationship with him, so if you want to get back on his loving side, then you'd have to show him that you are serious about really wanting to be in a relationship with him," Jorg said as Asia pouted and replied. "And what makes you such an expert on love?" "Well, unlike you, I know how to actually not screw up my relationships because I was so blind I didn't even see his pain or the fact he wasn't sure if you really loved him. Not that I blame him. I mean, it's not like he saved you from death countless times, gave you a place in his family after your parents abandoned you when you were just an infant, and even nearly died in Juggernaut Drive because you were weak and got captured by a Juka's RPSD of a brother. Honestly, I wouldn't want a woman who was such a crybaby and weak that all she can do is heal me when I'm injured after saving her," Jorg said as Asia slammed her hands on the bed and glared at him as best she could, but the magic user merely laughed at the attempt and pushed her away with his magic. "Oh, please, you don't scare me. You are the weakest link in the Gremory peerage, and if it weren't for Issei, you would still be dead. It must irritate him having to pretend to put up with a girl who's so weak that all she does is get captured like some damsel in distress. Can't blame him for choosing to marry Ravel over you since she's at least more competent than you and most of the other girls," Jorg said as Asia glared at the magic user and wanted to punch him, but all she would do was prove him right. "I don't have to hear this from you," Asia said as she stomped out of the room before Jorg called out to her. "Talk to him and become stronger. That's the only way you'll be able to stay by his side, otherwise, someone else will take your spot in his heart and replace you." Jorg said, and Asia felt her heart freeze at this. Then she remembered the many times Issei had saved her in the past and suffered while all she did was cry and heal him after the fight was over. Is he right? Have I been a burden to Issei the whole time? Asia pondered as she looked back when Issei saved her all the time and the times that Issei comforted her when she was sad or angry about something. Flashback. A month ago, Asia stood outside Issei's bedroom door, clutching the small mouse plushie Issei had won for her on their first date. She knocked on the door, and Issei emerged and looked down at her in surprise. Asia, what are you doing here? Issei asked. He didn't hate the former nun, but he wondered why she was in front of his room before she responded. I had a nightmare, and I know our relationship isn't the same as before, but I still wanted to. Asia stuttered before Issei gently patted her head. Asia, just because our relationship isn't the same as before doesn't mean I don't want you around anymore. I care about you, Asia, and a small part of my heart still does want to see you happy, so if you ever need comfort, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Issei said as he looked tired but was still willing to listen and comfort Asia before Asia thanked him and fell asleep in his arms, which made Ravel smile at this side of her husband since she knew that Issei still cared for them and wanted to help them but still kept his heart a bit closed off from any advances like when Rias tried to stuck him with outfits and the farply which annoyed Ravel. Still, she kept it under wraps before releasing her rage into her baking. In flashback, Asia thought back as she gripped her left hand with her right one, looking at her rings. She found it quite ironic that her rings were meant to heal the wounds of anyone Asia wished to, yet she couldn't heal the wounds she inflicted on his heart. He's right about me. I've been responsible for most of Issei's pain. If I were strong like Zenobia, then maybe I could be of more use to Issei rather than just being a burden to him, Asia said to herself while Zenobia was struggling after Issei left for his training. Zenobia was in the training arena and saw that no one else was around before summoning Durandal. Still, instead of easily lifting the sword like she always did, the sword felt really heavy as it fell to the ground, its chains wrapped around its blade and handle. I don't blame you for rejecting me since these past 3 months have proven that I'm far from worthy, Zenobia said as she looked at the sword that rejected her and recalled how the sword was so powerful, and yet she out of many other candidates was able to wield its power. However, after Issei left for his training, the sword began to reject her after seeing her soul and training waver before it allowed her to use its power one last time in the Battle of Baal Peerage. Afterward, the sword remained in its seal, not allowing Zenobia to use its power after the battle, which really hurt the warrior's pride as she knew that the sword wasn't just a hunk of metal but a blade that chose if its wielder was worthy of using its power. I'm supposed to be a knight, a FC King Knight. And even then, I didn't have the speed to get to Issei to help him against his battle against the Diamond descendant of Beelzebub. Zenobia then turned to her mirror and looked at Asia and her thoughts before she gritted her teeth. Asia is much faster than me, even though she isn't a knight. She is a bishop, one who is known for healing others. If Asia had been honed for battle like me, she could have easily saved Issei before I could even attempt to do so, Zenobia said as she closed her eyes and imagined their roles swapped, with Asia as a warrior more competent than her in battle, fighting alongside Issei. At the same time, she was a healer and supported in the rear while watching them from behind, which made Zenobia think of an interesting idea. Maybe if Asia and I had exchanged roles, then maybe our relationship with Issei would have been stronger and we could have helped him better before his training, Zenobia said as she looked back at her sword before pondering about Asia using the sword better than she could since, after all, Zenobia was an Amazon woman who was a fool thinking she, herself, deserved to be with Issei after what she did to him and didn't even realize his feelings before it was too late. I'm a fool, Zenobia said as she pulled Durandal back into its sealed space before the knight left the arena on a mission to find Asia Argento. Meanwhile, the other girls were feeling their regrets now that they could tell that Issei truly had changed for the better, but their relationship with him was still strained. Rias was in her room, looking at a special photo that she held close to her. It was the photo of her peerage when Issei defeated Riser, and they had a small party to celebrate Issei's victory. The photo was special since that was the beginning of their lives changing, and it was all thanks to Issei. You really changed my life for the better, and I'm grateful for all you've given me, Issei, Rias said as she looked back on her accomplishments. After seeing her actions and contributions and all they'd done together, Rias realized that she was the weakest link in their group, and Rias was supposed to be the king, the leader of the peerage. However, it was really Issei who was responsible for her peerage in becoming this powerful. Rias had always had exceptional luck when it came to finding her first 3 peerage members, but she realized that compared to her old self, she never actually tried to help them with their past issues. Sure, she gave them a roof over their heads, a place to learn and adapt to a new life, and a family, but in the end, she never truly helped them. Until Issei appeared and changed her whole world by helping each of them grow as people. Rias was jealous of Issei's unique ability to understand others and communicate with them, as well as help them on an emotional level. It made her feel like she disappointed not just her family but herself since they were becoming a real team while Rias was doing the same tricks. Issei was even responsible for helping Gasper come out of his shell, Zenobia joining her peerage, and even Asia for having a special relationship with the Red Dragon Emperor. Rias attempted to help her team before the battle with Sayarag Baal's peerage members but failed them as well. In the end, Issei is the one who saved them and brought them victory, as well as calling out the council and even ranked up to the high class, making him gain his peerage pieces. But he had yet to trade for Asia or Zenobia. And ever since the last month, I've been trying to fix my relationship with him. But no matter what I do, I can't seem to get any alone time with him, Ria said as she recalled that the past month was not easy for Ria since she was subjected to seeing Issei and Ravel as a loving married couple. Roswace and Issei bonding when they trained in the training area. Gasper and Issei hanging out and having some weird moments with the Gremory heiress, thinking Gasper had feelings for Issei due to the small boy cuddling and acting more like a girl around Issei. Vali coming to spar with Issei as well since the two seemed to enjoy going all out together. Finally, Kiba was able to restore their brotherhood and make it even stronger due to Issei helping Kiba with his swordsmanship and even encouraging him to start dating Tsubaki Shinra after getting Sona's permission, of course, leaving her with no chance to find Issei alone and even ask him on a hangout date. What's it going to take to spend some time with Issei? Rias pouted. Then, there was a knock on the door. Rias opened the door and her eyes widened. The visitor was none other than Ravel. The princess looked at Rias with a stoic expression. Rias, a little bird told me you've been feeling lonely. Is it because Issei no longer wishes for your company and wants my warmth instead? Ravel said with a smug smile as Rias clenched her fists a bit before Ravel continued. What did you expect? You ask him out on a few dates, then confess your feelings to him before apologizing to him about what a beach you were and hope you took you back. This isn't some romance novel. He loved you and moved mountains for you, but what you and the girl said shattered his heart. He may have forgiven you for what you did to him, but I haven't, and I'll make sure you don't get a chance to talk to him about your feelings unless I know you are actually serious about wanting to make amends with him. Ravel said as Rias slammed her hands on the table and yelled at her. And how is that fair to Issei? Because when I look at you, Rias Gremory, I can tell you yearn for the old Issei, the one who was a simple yes man and hung on to your every word. You had your chance to be with him, but you had a possessive attitude whenever he was talking to another one of the girls, even though you allowed his HRM plan and agreed to let Issei spend time with the girls. I love him, and I know that others feel the same way, which is why I let Asia and Zenobia spend time with him as well as Aquino since I know they regretted their actions and wished to make amends with him. So until you fix your attitude, then I won't allow you to be near him, Ravel said as she left Rias alone. The Gremory heiress didn't say anything as she laid her head down on her desk and let the tears fall from her eyes. She's right about me. I still haven't changed. I really did that to him. All because I was a possessive bitch who only desired to keep him for myself. I really am a selfish woman, Rias said as she clenched her fists before shaking her head. If I'm going to prove to Ravel that I'm willing to change, then I have to change as well to prove to myself that I won't stay in the past, Rias said, wiping her tears. She pulled out her phone and texted someone who she knew could help her get stronger. Her mother. Rias patiently waited for a moment before the phone was picked up on the other end. Rias, is something wrong, sweetie? No, Mom, but can I ask for a favor? Of course. What do you need? Is it possible that the offer to train under you is still open? Rias asked as she was taking the first step into bettering herself. So this is Issei's hometown. It has a nice homely feeling to it, like our home back at Earthland, Urza Scarlet said as she looked at the town coming in the distance. Indeed, the town isn't as large as our home in Earthland, but it seems to be a comfortable place, similar to where Issei said he grew up. Brandish said. The Nation Destroyer was amazed by the small town the Red Dragon Emperor grew up in before the two entered the town and drew a lot of attention to themselves due to their attire since it's not every day you see a person dress up as a knight and a woman who literally looks like she from a nightclub before Brandish begins to notice the people staring at them. We won't be able to get anywhere finding Issei. I wish it were easy to track him like back in Earthland, Brandish said as Urza's eyes widened before recalling her strategy when lost. Of course, I know how to find Issei, Ezra shouted as she then ran towards a random student and grabbed them by the shirt. The Hayatu household. Where is it? What? Bonk, you there? Ezra shouted, and the knocked-out schoolgirl companion shivered in fear. Brandish sighed, knowing Urza's way of asking directions would have the opposite effect. Ezra, that isn't going to work. It didn't work back in Earthland, so why would it work here? Brandish asked as Urza continued to knock out a few more until a voice stopped her. You're looking for Issei, right? Azazel asked, recognizing the women from the stories Issei told him about when the governor asked about the other world the dragon emperors were in for the training. Of course, thank you for being so helpful, good sir, Urza said while Brandish narrowed her eyes at Azazel before walking towards him with a questioning look as she stopped in front of him. Azazel was amazed by the green-haired girl's beauty until Brandish asked a question that caught him off guard. You're Issei's grandfather, right? The perverted old man who hasn't had a date in years, Brandish asked, hitting Azazel right in the heart with her question before the fallen governor stiffly nodded, a bit of BLD leaving his mouth from the critical hit. Why yes, and you must be Brandish and Urza Scarlet, correct? Azazel asked, knowing that the two were definitely the same people that Issei described. Brandish is a nice woman who's blunt when it comes to asking questions about a person, so be prepared for a critical hit to the heart. Urza, on the other hand, is sociable, but she has quirks that make her a riot, such as the time when she asked for directions from passengers. Issei definitely wasn't wrong when describing them, although I'm surprised they didn't bother changing clothes since one can equip clothes and the other is a queen, right? Azazel asked himself before Urza clasped Azazel's hands and replied to his earlier question. Yes, take us to him, please. I wish to be reunited with my husband, Ezra declared with no shame, and Brandish sighed at Urza's lack of tact when speaking. What my idiot friend here is saying is that we're looking for Issei since we wish to reunite with him. Can you please take us to him? Brandish asked with her innocent face, which made Azazel blush at the sight before dumbly nodding his head. Oh, of course. Follow me, Azazel said, giggling to himself as he kept that memory locked up in his mind while Brandish smiled to herself, proud to use the technique Lucy taught her to good use. Plus, it was how I was able to get Issei into bed with me, along with Ezra. Man, it was a wonderful night, Brandish said in her mind while her left hand rubbed her bosom, recalling the mark that her lover and partner placed on her after they made love that night under the moonlight in their bed. Urza saw what Brandish was doing and blushed so much her face almost became the same color as her hair. Recalling the night she felt her pride was damaged but loved when Issei and Brandish were showering her in so much love she became putty in both of their hands. Ezra didn't walk well after that night, but she felt so happy that she ignored anyone asking her questions about that night while enjoying her strawberry cake that day. Brandish saw Urza reminiscing and smiled to herself as she let Urza catch up to them before Brandish decided to tease Urza by smacking her rear. This caused Urza to yell, which she then yelled at Brandish, who was smirking at the scarlet-faced knight. What the hell are you doing? I'm just seeing how juicy your cake is since I'm thinking of a wonderful treat for Issei after we reunite with him. Maybe we can ask him to help with frosting it. Would you like that, Ezra? Or maybe double-layered? Brandish asked as she embraced Ezra's neck, making the knight struggle to stand. She felt her weak spot being hit by the perverted girl awakened her darker side when Issei and Brandish became very close. Issei may have been a pervert at first and controlled his urges now, but Brandish was a closet SDSD who loved to play with Urza when it came to teasing her. Issei teased her a bit, too, just for fun's sake, but when the two were working together to gang up on her then, Urza stood no chance as she was weak to the flirtations and affection that came with their teasing. Why yes, Ezra moaned, feeling very weak under the Nation Destroyer's embrace, hitting her sensitive spot until Azazel broke the mood. Excuse me, but we're here, Azazel said, making Brandish pout but given as she left Urza alone, who was silently thanking the governor for saving her from Brandish's teasing for now. If there was one thing Urza knew about Brandish, it was that she loved to conquer and defeat those she loved in the sack, and the only one who defeated her was Issei Hayato himself. Wonderful, I appreciate your help, Brandish said with a smile, although Ezra knew the pervert was secretly enjoying teasing her and weakening her with her evil magic. Azazel then knocked on the door of the mansion, which still shocked Urza, except for Brandish, since she was used to seeing large mansions back in Earthland. The door was then opened by Issei Hayato, who was dressed up in a kimono before his eyes widened as he saw Brandish smiling at him while Urza ran past the two and hugged Issei so strong his back popped. But the redhead knight seemed to be happy. It's really you, in the flesh, Ezra said with happy tears before embraced Issei's lips, shocking Issei before he reciprocated the embrace and wrapped his arms around Urza's waist, bringing them closer until the embrace ended with the two looking at each other with happiness in their eyes as if they were lovers being reunited. Hello, my Crimson Knight. Hello, my Crimson King. The two smiled at the nicknames they had made for each other since back at Fairy Tale, even before they dated. Issei teased Urza with the nickname Crimson Knight after they worked together on so many missions, while Urza gave Issei the nickname Crimson King after he took charge on many missions, which earned her respect and love. And is that our lover behind you as well, my knight? Issei asked, smirking at Brandish before Urza moaned at the thought of recreating that night, making her blush heavily. It also didn't help that Brandish smiled like a Cheshire cat that got the cream. Oh, I don't know, Issei. I think Urza might have gained some more junk in the trunk after she binged on her sweets when you and Vali left, Brandish said, making Urza embarrassed by the comment since it was true that Issei made sure Urza didn't eat too many sweets since the knight had a weakness for any sweet that had strawberries on it. Oh, then we might have to do some workout sessions with her again, like last time, Issei said, making Urza blush as she recalled their workout that surprisingly helped her lose the fat on her stomach, but her butt had become very popular with her lovers smacking it a lot. See, can we please not do this in public? Urza said, hoping to salvage what pride she had left before Issei and Brandish laughed as they stopped their teasing. Okay, you win, Issei said before embracing her cheek and cupping the other side with a smile on his lips. For now, that is. Azazel stifled his laugh as he wished he had his phone to record this before Issei invited the trio inside the mansion, which was an amazing sight for the Gremory peerage, except Ravel, who seemed to have her wings out and blush at the idea of getting in between Issei and the other girls to have an orgy. After the wedding, Issei and Ravel became one on their honeymoon. Still, their honeymoon unlocked Ravel's perverted side that was only for the sheets since she loved the idea of having another girl in the sack since she loved the idea of dominating them. At the same time, Issei rammed them from behind, causing Ravel to get so heated up that her flames ignited to respond to her imagination. So this is the yummy night you told me about along with Brandish? Ravel asked, with Issei nodding while Brandish smiled at Ravel, who knew that Ravel was like her in that way. Pleasure to meet you, Miss Phoenix. Sorry for missing the wedding. Oh, it is fine, Miss Brandish. I'm sure Issei and I can give you the play-by-play tonight when it's just the four of us, Ravel said as she used her wings to bring Issei close to her before Issei stopped her. Calm down, my Phoenix Queen. Business first before pleasure, Issei said, with Ravel pouting a bit but not minding since she could be professional before indulging in her nightly activities with her husband. Of course, my love, Ravel said before looking at both Brandish and Urza as she then curtsied to introduce herself. It's a pleasure to finally meet you both. My name is Ravel Phoenix Hyaudu, Bishop of Issei Hyaudu, my king, and his wife. Brandish smiled at the introduction before responding. And I am Brandish M, the Nation Destroyer. And I am Urza Scarlet. It's an honor to meet you all finally. Issei and Vali told us a lot about this world when they were back in Earthland with us, Urza said before Issei smiled at her and sat on the couch with Ravel on his lap while Brandish M and Ezra sat on his left and right side. With Brandish being comfortable with this before Riaz and the others sat across from the four and asked Issei since he would give them the best answers. So, are you dating them both, or are you friends? Azazel asked and responded with Issei smiling. Dating. I was hoping that one day I would be able to go back in between worlds to be with them, but I was afraid since we were told it was risky going back to another world. So Vali and I said our goodbyes, not knowing if we would ever see them again, which begs the question. How are you both here? We thought after the war there would be many people who needed help, Issei asked before Urza took over the response to the question. After taking care of the damage and body count when the war ended, Brandish and I tried to move on, but it wasn't easy since you and Vali made such a deep impact on all our lives, especially since I really wished to marry you in Earthland, but the fact that you and Vali would have to return scared me from making that decision, so I bit my tongue and held the question in my heart. But that still didn't explain how you both got to my world. That was actually due to a certain moon dragon learning how to open a portal between our worlds. There's more to it than that, isn't there? Brandish sighed as she took over the conversation. The moon dragon told us that should we go to your world, we wouldn't be able to return since it would have been risky, even though you and Vali had to wait for a chance to return home. But what about Fairy Tail and your friends? Surely you didn't leave without saying goodbye, Issei asked before Urza hugged Issei and embraced his lips quickly. She then placed her head on his left shoulder. Issei, you must understand that while it did hurt leaving them after we said our goodbyes, my heart was happy since I wanted to be with you and fight by your side and not just the war back home but also be your wife. That's why I made a promise to myself that I would have no regrets or hesitate in doing this, Ezra said as she got on one knee and pulled out a ring before speaking to him. Issei Hyaudu, will you marry me and make me the happiest woman in the world? Ezra asked before Issei recalled seeing that ring at a festival the two attended during their vacation days. Only if you're willing to accept me and my quirks too. Well, someone has to make sure you don't get into trouble. Issei and Urza laughed and looked at each other with love. Issei nodded and pulled out a ring that matched the one Urza had. They placed the rings on each other, making Azazel cry. At the same time, Brandish smiled at Urza, finally saying the question that had been in her heart. And now we must begin the marriage in bed, Urza said, with Riaz stopping them. Hold on. What do you mean marriage in bed? Shouldn't there be a ceremony or something? Oh, we'll take a different approach to dragon law since if a couple wishes to be married, then they must mark each other while becoming one. It's a ritual to make sure that no other dragon tries to steal their lover who holds their heart, Issei said as he recalled the dragon law in Earthland and saw the similarities between it and the dragon law in his world. He's not wrong. Vali told me the same thing when he read about it when learning more about dragons. Plus, Ravel has her mark but doesn't show it unless Issei's around, right? Azazel asked, with Ravel smirking at Azazel before tapping her nose and her bust. No peeking, Ravel said with a teasing look in her eyes while Issei wrapped an arm around her protectively, making Brandish smile at this side of her lover. And since you're here, I actually wanted to ask you two something important, but that'll be for a later time. However, I know you two didn't come alone since Ezra's terrible sense of direction while Brandish was unaware of the world, so who came with you? Issei asked. Oh, Vali's girlfriend and librarian. The two went to Vali, where he's probably getting a lap pillow from Demaria while Altair is fascinated with new knowledge in another world. She's always been a sucker for libraries, Brandish said, recalling the librarian and how she got stuck reading for hours, forgetting to eat and sleep until Vali coaxed her to bed to rest and eat, along with socializing with others. I'm so going to tease Vali when I see those two again, Issei said while Brandish giggled at the image since she recalled Issei and Vali's bromance back in Earthland before she looked at Ravel and asked, So, do Issei and Vali still act like they are married? Oh yeah, Issei and Vali's bromance is strong and definitely wholesome, that's for sure, Ravel said, knowing that Ravel was sort of Issei's brother, second wife, which led to Azazel and Kuroka laughing their butt off while Vali groaned at the title but didn't deny it, making them laugh even harder. Okay, we can tease Vali later, but there must have been another reason, isn't there? Issei asked, making Brandish sigh before nodding his head. You are correct. Altair, Selene, and Carla see a vision that there is dangerous magic in your world. For you to see, the magic that they see is more demonic than the ones that Zareth made when he used his magic. The magic in your world is far darker than Zeraf's power and the demons we face. It is on par with Acknowledgea, Brandish explained as Issei's eyes widened before recalling what Asia told him about the magic that Cao Cao was seeking before he became some demon. Tell me, does this magic happen to come from a book? Yes. What else happened? In the vision. Armageddon. Barely any survivors. Issei clenched his fists at the description of the vision before speaking to her. All right then. Next time I see Cao Cao, I'll do what I should have done when I saw him last time. And what might that be? Brandish asked. Kill him, Issei said. Brandish could tell that Issei was serious about this since, from what she was told about Cao. Cao, the man was a narcissist who believed he was a hero to save the world, but all the hero did was kill more and more innocent people actually trying to save anyone. And that's why we're here, to help you end this nightmare before the vision becomes true. Urza said this time as she wished to protect her future with Issei at her side, making him smile at the thought of working with his comrades again. All right then, we'll have to meet up with Vali at the festival this weekend. Plus, that'll be a good chance for you both to get to know the town and meet Yasaka and sweet little Kanu. Kanu is a lot like Wendy, given her personality and how she tries to act mature but is a cute little cinnamon roll. Issei said in joy, as he couldn't wait to introduce both Brandish and Urza to Kanu since the former was a fan of cute things, while Urza liked kids, especially after spending a lot of time with Wendy. Although I do hope Vali's doing okay once he hears the news, Issei said, not noticing the absence of a certain nun and night before a blue blur left the room without being seen, heading back to its MSDR. So you mean to tell me that magic from Earthland ended up here? How? Vali asked while resting his head on Demaria's lap, who smiled at the fact she beat Vali's butt again. Altair nodded in response before explaining to him, I believe that when you and Issei returned to your world, there was still a rift between our worlds, leading us to believe that the magic that this Cao Cao found must have come from the rift and somehow ended up in hell all this time. Luckily, we're here to help and warn your comrades of the dangers of this magic. I'm glad to see you both again, and I would love to tell them, but I wish to properly introduce you to the team since I have missed you both. Truly, I have, Vali said, making Demaria smirk at Vali before replying to him. Well, why don't we have some fun with the cat and make her our little cat? Demaria said before receiving a light tap on her forehead from Vali, narrowing his eyes at her. I wish to build a relationship with her naturally instead of just sec. That's rich since you and Altair were married twice since you two had so much fun in that time Dimension F seeking each other like rabbits in here, Demaria said, causing Altair and Vali to blush since they had done the deed. Still, the God Soul User was a cheeky girl like Brandish who loved to tease her lovers in the sack. I don't know what you're talking about, Altair stammered, trying not to recall the love they shared in that timeless dimension when the two gave each other their first time, and swore not to tell the cheeky Amazon since she wanted to get in on the fun as well. Kuroka, on the sidelines, was deeply amused by this as she ate some popcorn while Biku cried tears of joy for his friend finally getting laid. Arthur was fanning LaFay due to the poor girl passing out as the image of Vali actually having sex with a woman and the words Demaria used made her imagination run wild. Albion laughed his butt off in the divine dividing gear while being amused by Vali wanting to not confess to the God Soul User's relentless teasing since Albion was grateful for Issei helping Vali open up to others. In contrast, Vali helped Issei become more of a warrior and dragon. Oh, if only Issei were here. He would give you a thumbs up and continue to mess with you as well, but don't worry, I won't tell your work husband. Issei is not my work husband. Oh, please, you two have such a bromance that the girls of your HRM actually thought you wanted to ask him out back in Earthland. Until you said you were both into women. Though I do believe that pretty boy almost tricked you. Do not bring that embarrassing moment back, please. I still get the urge to throw up when that memory comes back, Vali said while Demaria laughed her butt off so much she almost passed out while Altair comforted her husband to put him at ease. SHH. There, Altair said, placing Vali's head in her lap before running a hand through his hair, causing Vali to relax and enjoy the warmth of Altair until he fell asleep on said lap, making Altair smile at his expression before taking his lips in a chaste embrace. Don't worry, my love, I'll always make sure you're safe and loved, Altair said before promising that if Rhizam ever tried to touch Vali, she would punish him for putting her through hell and back. And Rhizam wouldn't live to tell the tale once she was done with him. Meanwhile, with a certain nun and knight, are you sure you want to do this, Asia? Shouldn't we talk to Riaz about this first before doing this? Zenobia asked, which made Asia sigh before speaking to her friend. Zenobia, for too long, both of us thought we would be better suited to each other's roles, so why not do this? The K&K have been worked out on my plan, and this spell will allow us both to not only become new people but also help Issei in the upcoming battle since if what Rasei overheard was true, then Issei will need all of the help he can get, Asia said, confident her plan would work since she worked out the bugs with the device that killed her when the Fallen captured her. Zenobia was still nervous about this before Asia placed a hand on her shoulder and continued. Plus, think about how this will benefit us both. It's a fresh start and a way for us to rebuild ourselves. What do you say? Asia asked, with Zenobia pondering about possibly changing herself to better herself before sighing. Okay, deal, but on the condition that we tell Issei about what we've done afterward. deal. Asia said that before connecting their bodies to the Sacred Gear Extractor 2.0, they had a 100% chance of not killing the target. It began to activate it as both girls felt their souls leave their bodies before they began to swap with the extractor, ensuring that the process was going smoothly before the process ended with both Asia and Zenovia's bodies slowly groaning as they began to wake up. It worked. Zenovia cheered as she summoned her rings before smiling at the power at her fingertips, literally. Asia was wielding X-Durandal with ease as she took a few practice swings, and it surprisingly came easy to her. Whoa, it's as if the sword is guiding me at the same time when I swing him, Asia said, looking at her reflection in the sword steel before smiling at her new self. Let's go tell them, Zenovia said before the two left. They couldn't wait to tell them about what they'd done and were ready to prove themselves to not just Issei but themselves that they would be able to help him and stand by his side. I am amazed by how large the supernatural world is, and all this knowledge is here, yet others don't wish to explore it all, Altair shouted as she read a new book she had borrowed from Azazel's library. Altair enjoyed the book immensely due to her love of literature. After Vali introduced Altair to the many books in the Hayadu library and Grigori's library, Altair took off so fast, like a child in a candy store. Altair loved libraries because they were a place of peace, where she could enjoy some silence with a cup of her favorite tea or coffee while reading a new book that piqued her interest. Romance was a bit of a complicated subject for Altair, so when she asked Issei for some advice on romance, let's say that Altair took so many notes that she had a thick file. She used to go on many dates with Vali back in Earthland, and now she can use her plans should she ever meet Vali again in his world. I told you she'd rush to the books like back in Earthland, Demaria said, holding Vali in a thigh hold before Vali broke free and put her in a choke hold, causing her to concede defeat. Indeed. By the way, I'm glad you and Altair are getting along with the others, but I am curious if the others might show up. Vali said that he had suspicions that some of the others he knew would show up in his world. Oh, does a certain emperor miss his little pyromaniac, who was also his stalker? She wasn't that bad. Demaria held in her laugh, recalling how Issei told her about Flare sneaking into Vali's room at night and sometimes even snuggling with him while he was sleeping in his bed. Whatever you say, Vali, Demaria said before asking Vali a question. Say Vali, now that you know the reason we're here, how are we going to handle this cow guy? Vali sighed while sitting down before replying to her. Well, unfortunately, we already checked their old hideouts, and they've been abandoned or destroyed. I guess that Cow is hiding to avoid detection so he can get adjusted to his new body and powers. If what Issei sent me in the report was true, then Cow has a power that will make him a definite threat, but I wonder if the true Longinus will still even accept him now that he's becoming more of a demon than a human. Vali knew the true Longinus would only allow the wielder to continue to use it if they could continue carrying its will. However, given Cow's personality and his for power, it's a surprise that the true Longinus has been with him for this long. So when is this festival that the kitty cat is going to be in charge of? I'm actually interested in seeing what a festival is like in this world and if there will be some good food and sake. Demaria shouted due to the fact that the god Soul User and Kana from Fairy Tail were large fans of sake and wine, which led to the two of them becoming drinking buddies and trying out many different types of wine, beer, and sake when there was a good type that piqued their interest. This also led to Vali and Issei having to control their gluttonous nature when the two were in the mood for a lot of drinks. I'm starting to be worried for your liver again since you and Kana continue to amaze me how you drink so much and don't get ill from how much you drink, especially since you get drunk faster than Kana. Vali said since he recalled drunk Demaria from the nights that the White Dragon had to carry Demaria back to his bed, which made the god Soul User release her full side since many times she's invited him to bed to make some demigods to rule the world they'd conquer. Why is it you never tell me what I did when I was drunk? Demaria asked, which made Altair hide her laughter since she'd also been invited to bed by drunk Demaria with Vali to make more powerful demigods, which amused both parties. You did very well picking a wonderful woman to date, Vali. I want to ask, however, if it's true that you were a Chunibyo back in your youth. Altair asked, making Vali freeze for a moment while Demaria laughed her butt off since she recalled meeting Vali's big sister, Lavinia, who was shocked to see that her little brother had not only become a man but also had a HRM of his own. Her reaction was priceless. Flashback. I'm so happy my little brother isn't going to die a hermit, Lavinia shouted while she hugged her little brother, much to his embarrassment and the girl's amusement. Oh my goodness, baby Vali is so cute, Hiroka said while gushing over the photos of Vali as a kid, which made the White Dragon Emperor beg for death to take him now. You have my permission to kill me, Vali said. Oh, I even have some pics of Arthur from when his mother washed him, Morgan said, joining in the conversation while Arthur joined Vali, awaiting death to claim them both. Please kill me now, Arthur said while Biku looked the photos over and replied to the depressed guys. What's the big deal? I'll admit that as a kid, I had a cute butt that the ladies like to pinch. I got used to it when my old man told me it was a compliment from the woman, Biku said, which made Vali and Arthur glare at him before Hiroka gasped. Is this middle school syndrome, Vali? Hiroka asked, making the Fairy Tail girls see Vali dressed up as an edgy character. Lavinia smiled at the blackmail, while Vali felt like his grave just got deeper. Funny, you should mention that since Vali was a very adventurous child, that was a Chunibyo. He also explored his other side, Lavinia said before revealing a girl with silver hair standing next to Lavinia. In contrast, the girls gushed over the girl before Demaria asked, "So, who's the chick next to you?" Lavinia smiled with a wide grin, which made Vali beg for God to take his life then and there. "It's Valerie Lucifer. Isn't Vali's alter ego cute?" And all hell broke loose after that moment. In flashback. "So you still cross-dress even in another world, huh, Valerie?" Demaria asked with a smile that was waiting for the fish to bite, and sadly, Vali caved in. "I honestly thought that in a new land, I could still use my alter ego for missions that required disguises," Vali said, recalling Issei's reaction when he saw the female alter ego of Vali and complimented, which made Vali blush, especially due to the fact that Issei learned some things from Gasper about cross-dressing, so Issei used some makeup to make Valerie the center of attention, making many of the girls of Fairy Tale pout at how much attention Valerie got more than them. "I still can't believe you blushed when Issei applied your makeup on your face." Demaria laughed while Vali continued to pray for God to kill him while Altair wiped away a streak of BLD that came from her nose. "I support your FTSH, but should you wish to pursue a relationship with Issei Hayaru, all I ask is if I can gather some information," Altair said with some paper and a pencil in her hands, much to Vali's embarrassment. "See, your girlfriend support your man crush on Issei." "Shut up, you overgrown lizard. Now, can you speak to your partner, Mama?" Albion asked with a teasing grin while Vali's face looked so red he was about to explode. "I am not a mother. Pieces call me that, and you know it." Does someone need Daddy to come and help with the kids?" Albion asked before laughing his butt off while Vali was praying for someone to save him from his death by embarrassment. No, be nice to Vali. It's not his fault that he's weak to people who kick his butt," Azazel said, causing Demaria to cough as she laughed and gasped from the lack of air in her lungs. Stop. You are killing me." Demaria laughed in between before Kuroka appeared in her classic kimono before Azazel calmed down the God Soul user. All right. Now I know as much as you all want to continue messing with Vali about his crush, I just got word from Yasaka and her council. They're postponing the festival due to the threat of Cao and the hero faction. After the last time they captured Yasaka, she wanted to protect her people so that the festival would be in Kyo Town instead, and she would stay at Issei's home. However, they're planning on setting up a dummy festival in Kyoto to bring out Cao and his group, Azazel explained, with Vali thanking his father for the save before looking over the file. "So Yasaka and Kanu will be coming to Kyo Town. Not just them. Yasaka and Kanu will be SCRT by a group of 10 Yokai soldiers, one of whom is highly skilled in fighting and another woman who's working with Yasaka and as a child. The woman's name is Hisato Nana, goes by the nickname Hachai. She's to ensure that the connection between Yasaka and Kyoto is strong so there are no issues should she be gone longer than they estimated. Arrival time, before Friday. They're trying to keep a low profile on who knows since they expect Cao to have spies everywhere," Azazel said before handing Vali another file. "This is the location of their base, according to Jean and Jorg. They were able to give us the location of their base but are expecting it to be empty. But you want us to check it out to see if it's true and if we can get any information on Cao and his plans." Bingo. Bikuo, Arthur, Kuroka, and Morgan are heading to Kyoto to help with the fake festival. At the same time, you and your girls investigate the base to ensure there is anything we can use to figure out Cao's real plan and how ahead of us he really is. He's always tried to separate our forces, so we need to get ahead of him, Azazel said before Vali reassured the governor that they would be able to take care of it with no problems. Demaria was excited since she got to fight, while Altair sighed before putting her book away after the dog-eared it. "Oh, and by the way, your boyfriend told you to be safe," Azazel shouted at him before vanishing to avoid a blast from Vali's magic rifle. Later, Hero Faction Headquarters. "So this is the location. Seems a bit creepy to have your headquarters be an abandoned castle," Demaria said, looking around the area while Altair checked the inside of the castle with her magic. "I can't detect anyone within the walls, but I feel a massive aura inside the center of the castle. It's as if a massive beast is there chained up and ready to attack us," Altair said before Vali replied to her search. "Which definitely means we're in the right place," Vali said while summoning Divine Dividing. "Demaria, you're with me in the front. Altair, cover our rear." The trio then began to head into the castle to see that it really was abandoned after just a couple of days with BLD on the walls and floor, along with many bodies, both human and demon corpses, scattered as if they were killed by something with large claws and bite marks. "Stay on guard," Vali said with concern, making the two women nod his way as they continued to walk toward their target. However, things never go their way. A radio voice spoke to them until Cao appeared as a hologram, making Vali appear to be annoyed at the former hero. "Cao, I'm surprised to see you even uglier than usual. What's the matter? Spent too much time in the underworld, or did Hades curse you after being done with you?" Vali asked, making Cao appear to be a bit annoyed until he replied to Vali. Cao said before the ground began to shake as a massive figure appeared from the shadows with the sound of chains being dragged on the stone ground until the trio saw that the beast was an understatement. The berserker was a muscular, hulking man with bleach-white skin, black markings on his face and forearms, and a single row of brown spikes running down his spine. He had a relatively small head, with beady orange-yellow eyes and a wide set of teeth. On his fingers and toes are spiraling red appendages. A set of tubes with the same appearance stemmed from his back and connected to his head. He wore torn black plants with a brown belt, and on his wrists were chains attached to cuff links on the beast. "Wait, this is him. What have you done to him?" Vali asked, a hint of concern in his tone as he saw the once mighty Heracles reduced to a beast in chains. And those who failed became food for the others. Demaria asked before Cao Cao replied. Cao Cao said before laughing as the signal was cut off, making Berserker look at the trio before roaring as he ran on all fours towards the trio, rage in his eyes. "Scatter!" Vali shouted before the trio dodged with Altair summoning her orb. Luminous minutes. Altair shouted as the orb split into multiple orbs before blasting Berserker in the face. However, the orb seemed to only reflect off his body, making the beast hiss at Altair. Berserker then felt a cut on its face as it looked to see Demaria appear behind its head before Demaria used her Age Seal to move quickly until she appeared in front of Berserker and CLC cut her teeth again before smirking at Berserker. "Age Scratch," Demaria said until Berserker howled in pain as it felt its entire body was littered with multiple injuries, causing a fountain of BLD to fall under its body before Altair did a few hand signs. "Ice Make, Rosencrone," Altair shouted as the vines bound Berserker to the ground. But as the beast was trying to free itself, Vali appeared behind it and fired multiple magic bullets from his magic Tommy gun, injecting sleep magic into the beast's body. This caused Berserker to calm down before collapsing on the floor. Vali flew back over to the girls before Demaria smirked at their enemy. So much for a dangerous beast. Don't underestimate him. Heracles was a tank back when he was human, but who knows how durable he is now that Cao Cao turned him into this thing," Vali said while Altair placed a hand on the beast's head and closed her eyes, connecting to the beast's mind. Altair was shocked to see Heracles' life before he became a demon, and a final memory scared her. Altair was about to cut off the connection when Berserker appeared before her, nodding and then speaking. "As you command, my MSDR." Altair gasped as she left the connection before calling out to her husband and lover. "Demaria, Vali, this isn't over yet," Altair shouted as the beast began to growl in its sleep as the tubes connected to its head began to have some magenta-colored liquid flow from the tubes and into his body, causing Berserker to growl as his body began to change into something more monstrous. "I will not fail my MSDR's orders," Berserker yelled as his thoughts were projected to the trio until his body began to become more of a beast than a human. "I will kill and destroy all in my path for my MSDR," Berserker roared, forcing the trio to cover their ears until a final thought hit their minds. THAOS break. His body became an extremely large ankylosaurus-like creature with 6 stumpy legs. His back was now covered in spikes, and his long tail ended in a spiked sphere. Berserker now had a big mouth and 6 eyes. Vali's eyes widened as Berserker roared at the trio, generating a massive amount of magic before releasing it. BOOM. The blast shot into Vali, who was feeling the magic burn his skin until Divide began to drain the magic from the attack. Divide, 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 divide. Vali gritted his teeth as he summoned his balance breaker and loaded the magic bazooka with all of the magic gathered from the blast until the attack ended. This made Vali smirk inside his armor while he aimed at Berserker, making a beeline for him with its mouth wide open. "Rest in peace, Heracles," Vali said before firing the bazookas at the beast's mouth, making Berserker stiffen a bit until his body exploded, causing his body to fly everywhere with BLD staining the earth until the upper body of Heracles was shown to be in the center of the demon's body, making Vali leave his armor and head towards Heracles until the hero looked up at Vali and smiled a bit. "Thank you for freeing me. You really have changed, Vali, better than even us humans," Heracles said with a smirk, coughing into the air, and then passed away with his eyes closed, giving him a somewhat peaceful look. "If it weren't for the fact that this guy worked for that narcissistic a hole and was forced to become a demon, then I'd honestly feel like he wasn't worth mourning," Demaria said, looking over the former Berserker's body until Heracles' body was consumed by black flames which left no trace of his being until Cao Cao appeared behind them. "Such a disappointment," Cao Cao said before looking at the trio. "But I will say that it was an enjoyable battle to see what you all were capable of. I'll be taking my leave for now, but I should warn you that I intend to eliminate both you and Issei Hayadu. Enjoy your time until I come with my army to destroy you all." Cao Cao smiled as he was about to leave before a WHP of fire sliced Cao Cao, making him hiss while holding his left arm before the 4 of them looked to see a woman approach them with her hair set ablaze. And like the old saying, hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. "How dare you threaten to harm my mate?" a woman shouted. She appeared to be a pale-skinned young woman of average height with long, dark red hair, which is usually worn in a pair of massive waist-length braids that are tied together behind her back. Her free hair is shown to be wavy, flowing, and extremely long, with its length being manipulable at her will. The woman had full lips and reddish eyes that were always wide open, which, together with her tilted head, perpetually raised eyebrows, and semi-open mouth gave her a somewhat deranged appearance. In addition, she seems to have visible bags below her eyes, adding to her distinctive look. She possessed an extremely voluptuous body, with very large breasts matched by similarly large hips, endowing her with a virtually perfect hourglass figure. Her left shoulder bears a scar in the shape of an X, and her dark mark is located on the upper part of her right breast. It was the mark of her home village, the Sun Village. The woman's shapely figure was hugged by an extremely revealing crimson dress secured by halter neck straps, which leaves most of her upper body, namely her back, sides, and a large portion of her cleavage almost reaching down to her navel, completely exposed. The dress reached down to her calves. The skirt was flouncy, possessing a large slash in its front right part for her legs to move freely. A lighter section, consisting of 2 elongated patches acting as a belt of sorts in correspondence to her waist, was apparently sewn to the dress. Her attire was completed by long gloves almost reaching up to her shoulders, matching her dress in color, each having a small cut on the upper outer edge. She also wore simple, light-colored boots. Flare, isn't she that stalker who was obsessed with Vali? I believe that Issei was able to give Vali some advice to help her calm down around him. Flare smiled as she had her hair become a fist that grabbed Cao Cao by his body and continued to pummel him into the ground before Flare leaped into Vali's arms and embraced his face so many times the White Dragon Emperor had so many embrace from the lipstick. I'm so happy to see you again, my white knight in shining armor, Flare shouted, continuing to embrace Vali while the hare threw away Cao Cao until Flare let go of Vali and began to battle Cao Cao, making him afraid of the woman. As much as I want to fight you, Vali, I'm afraid I have more important things to do, but don't worry. I'll be back. Tell Issei to enjoy his marriage while it lasts because I'm coming for him, first before you, Cao Cao said, vanishing from the area, making Vali glare at the former hero until he sensed that Cao Cao was gone. I'm glad to see you, Flare. How did you get here? Vali asked before Flare rubbed herself on Vali, moaning as she was happy to take in the scent of the man she loved. I'll tell you later, but I need my snuggles and embrace, Flare said before Vali teleported them back to the Grigori, where Lavinia was going to enjoy talking to his new lover. With Issei, so you mean to tell me that you and Zenobia decided to swap powers because you both wanted to try and be in each other's roles after a conversation with Jorg? Issei asked while seeing Asia training with Durandal while Zenobia was practicing using Twilight Healing. Well, the thing is that we've been feeling this way for a while now after you left, and truthfully, I've felt this way since I've always felt like a burden to you, Asia said. Even before the duo swapped powers, Asia felt envious of Zenobia since she was everything that Asia wasn't. The nun wished she could be as strong and confident as Zenobia so that, with her power, she could actually help Issei rather than be a burden. Zenobia was also going through her trials, as Asia went through hers. She thought that if Asia had been honed for battle like myself, she could have easily saved Issei before Zenobia could even attempt to do so. Zenobia thought before she explained how she imagined herself as a bishop healing and helping Issei, while Asia imagined herself with Durandal SWNGNG her sword and cutting down her foes with Issei. When Urza and Brandish appeared, the two of them knew that Issei needed all the help he could get, so they decided to swap powers and begin to help each other get used to the other's powers. Issei was glad they told him but was concerned about their well-being. I won't say anything since this was your choice, but I wanted to see if you two were truly okay with this since SWCH powers is a big game changer. Did you tell Riaz about this? Issei asked before Asia replied to him. We tried to, but Riaz seemed busy with something related to family assistance. Issei nodded at this before suggesting that Asia and Zenobia should get some help with their training. So, Issei asked Urza to help train Asia in swordsmanship. Issei can help Zenobia with what he knows about magic, but Asia could help fill in the gaps. Thank you. It would mean a lot, but where's Brandish? Oh, Brandish told me that she was going to get a job thanks to Azazel's connections, though knowing him, I'd wager a guess where she's going to end up, Issei said while knowing where she's going to be and how much she's going to tease both him and Urza when they see the Nation Destroyer at her new job. Now then, I think you should face one of my familiars to help you get better adjusted with Durandal since your body isn't built like Zenobia since you trained to be a healer your whole life instead of a knight. So your body won't be able to move as fast even with the knight piece in your body, Issei said before pulling out a black key from his storage, but this key seemed to have chains around itself. The key was black, ending in a spade-like tip connected to the bow by a dark serpentine figure spiraling around the blade of the key. The center of the bow is black, stamped with the crest of the snake charmer, colored in white, with the serpentine figure spiraling around it. Asia and Zenobia stiffened as they sensed a massive demonic but celestial force within it until Issei muttered a single word. Release. The chain snapped as a massive purple aura enveloped the key until Issei raised the key into the air and turned it as if unlocking a door. Look up and behold. Issei declared that a massive portal had appeared above him. Open gate of the snake charmer. Ophiuchus. The portal released a tremendous amount of power as Asia stiffened to see a massive serpent emerge from it. The serpent almost reminded her of Ophi's, somehow, before it began to transform into a smaller being. Thank you for summoning me, MSDR. Can I have some snuggles with you later? Ophiuchus asked as her form turned from a massive snake to a young woman with short black hair. She wears a sleeveless white leotard with horizontal and vertical lines in the middle and on top of her breast, along with some black spots over it and a black bow tie. She also wore long, pink stockings with white ornaments going around each stocking at the thigh. Also, she seemed to have a shroud of darkness around her body. Ophiuchus smiled as she nuzzled into Issei's back before Issei rubbed her head, making her moan in delight from the touch of affection. Allow me to introduce my final familiar, Ophiuchus. She's very affectionate, starved, and enjoys wrapping herself on me since she's a bit possessive," Issei said, calming down the snake woman, who had her arms wrapped around Issei's neck and seemed to nuzzle into his back as if asking for attention until Issei began to rub her head, making her smile wider. Asia readied herself as she was ready to not only prove to herself that she wouldn't be a burden but that she could also fight by Issei's side. With said nation destroyer, I am definitely going to enjoy teasing the hell out of Urza and Issei when they see my new uniform, Brandish said while checking out her new clothes for her job, which made Azazel snicker while imagining Issei enjoying the view. In contrast, Urza was teased by so many role-play fantasies. "Please take some videos or pictures so I can enjoy this," Azazel said before Brandish smirked at him. "Oh please, if you knew the kinds of things that Issei and Vali did to their HRM, you'd probably write a book on it," Brandish said. Knowing Issei and Vali enjoyed going on dates with their lovers when they got married to said lovers, their firsts were Brandish and Urza, while Vali's first time was with Altair and Flare. Azazel continued to cry tears of joy. He was so happy that he wished the governor was there for the wedding, but he would take the joy of seeing Issei and Ravel being married. "So tell me, are you and Issei going to enjoy yourselves with the other girls before your new job begins? But of course, I still want to help Issei frost Urza's cake while I want to take a bite of that yummy phoenix. For research purposes, of course." "Of course," Azazel said in response before receiving a text from Lavinia to show Vali was currently being hugged by Flare while Altair was giving Vali a lap pillow. Still, Demaria was trying to get out of the hair that Flare trapped her in, which made Azazel chuckle a bit. "Next week will definitely be interesting," Azazel said, knowing that Isaka would be able to return safely to Kyoto without any fear that Cao Cao would return since Vali sent a video message of the battle with Berserker and Cao Cao's message to both Vali and Issei. Still, little did the hero know that the Dragon Emperors would not be easy to kill, especially with their girlfriends coming into their world and would kill to protect them. Time, 5 a.m. Ezra moaned in her sleep while snuggling with her husband after the mating ritual the two had in bed, along with Ravel, who was hugging Urza from the back and enjoyed grabbing her cake, making Urza blush at this since she could barely feel her legs after her husband and wife made her feel like she was in heaven and given a delicious dessert from hell that made crave more, which her lovers reciprocated. That is until Urza couldn't keep up anymore, especially since they frosted her all over and tasted her delicious strawberries many, many times. Issei slowly woke up as he smiled at Urza's eyes, struggling since she was trying her best not to moan so loudly. Still, Issei decided to save her by taking her lips once more, making Ezra's moan silent before she opened them to see Issei smiling down at her, making her blush at Issei's dragon side until he spoke to her. "Good morning, my Crimson Knight. Did you enjoy our reunion and marriage ceremony?" Issei asked before nibbling her neck, making Urza whimper a bit before breathe a bit from her body heat rising once more until she felt the gaze of a phoenix looking down at her like a tasty meal. I think Urza definitely enjoyed the reunion and marriage very much, my love, especially when she was begging for me to eat her out while she was eating her carrot," Ravel said with a mischievous grin, making Urza blush reach her shade before she hid under the covers to hide her furred face, recalling the many sect toys and positions they tried out, which made Urza turn so red that Issei even gave her a new nickname, Red Velvet, like the cake. Ravel giggled at this side of their shared lover since she loved seeing the knight act strong in battle but weak in the sack since she wasn't experienced in bedroom arts. But after seeing Urza turn into a MSCSD that unlocked Ravel's sadistic side that loved to take a bite of that forbidden fruit. Now, Ravel, be nice to Urza. She's still recovering when we marked each other last night," Issei said while Urza blushed and felt the mark that was on her butt, while also feeling the claw marks on her back, which made her shiver and joy recalling how Issei LCK'd them to help heal them, which made Urza love him even more until she poked out of the bed and snuggled into Issei's arms again. "Can't we stay in for our honeymoon?" Ezra asked with a cute pout, which made the Red Dragon Emperor and Phoenix giggle at her cute face before they both embraced her cheeks and replied, "Sorry, Ezra, but it's also your first day as an intern at Kyo Academy. Don't want to make a bad impression, right?" Issei asked, making Urza sigh before nodding since Azazel informed Issei that Urza would be a university student since she is 19 and 26 due to the events at Tenryu Island. To avoid any confusion, the group decided that it would be better if Urza were 19 in her new identity, which she didn't mind. But the only part that scared her was that she'd be interning under the new teacher at Kyo Academy, which was none other than Brandish. Brandish smiled at their reactions and granted she wanted to join in but had to prepare for her first day as a teacher at the school, so she told Ravel and Issei to enjoy themselves with Urza but not to wear her out too much. "Okay," Urza said as she walked to the shower and relaxed while the warm water washed her body of last night's fun, which made Urza remember their reunion and when Ravel spoke to Urza before last night about something personal. "I still can't believe Ravel didn't mind me being Issei's wife in Kyo Town while in the supernatural world. Ravel would be known as his main wife," Urza said in her mind, not knowing that it was Ravel's compensation for what both Issei and Ravel did to Urza in bed. Urza was then pulled out of her thoughts as Ravel came into the shower along with Issei, making Urza blush as she felt Ravel's small but wonderful bust pressed against her own while Issei's sword pressed into her butt. I hope you don't mind us joining you, Ezra. This way, we not only save water, but we all can spend some more time together before school begins, Issei said cheekily, while Ravel had a cat grin and nodded in agreement with him. Indeed, especially since we can tell you are still hungry for more punishment, and who are we to deny such a request from our wife, right, Issei? Indeed, Ravel and Issei said while Erza was then peppered with embrace, hugs, and so much affection that she was surprised the water wasn't able to cool her down. This is even more challenging than the time we faced Hades. Fairy tale, give me strength, Erza shouted in her mind as her mind, body, and soul went to heaven so many times like a roller coaster. Time skip. Time, 6 a.m. Roswace was shocked to see Issei and Ravel come down in their uniforms, looking refreshed, while Erza was refreshed as well but limped a bit before eating with the Phoenix heiress and Issei. So, what's happening in the underworld since my battle with Seirag? I can only imagine the lower classes are being affected by the impact when I made my little speech to Seirag in the middle of our battle, Issei said before sipping some of his coffee while Ravel giggled and replied. The lower classes are rallying together and helping each other get stronger than you thought, and they also see you as their champion who not only fights for them but also many people are calling you a new nickname, the Dragon Guardian. Many other kids especially like your new balance breaker and the new direction of the show since the kids like the original, but the new one is just as popular since it helps the kids gain more confidence in themselves. Plus, Sona Citri is also receiving help from lower-class families who support her dream of building a school for them, Ravel explained as she went into business mode and began to explain the progress and the increased status of both Issei and Sona, which made Roswace surprised since she knew Issei supported Sona's dream as well. But seeing the changes after a few months still was a shock to her since she was getting used to this new Issei before Issei waved over to her to join them, which made the Valkyrie smile as she was the one who didn't bond with Issei as much, so Roswace took this opportunity to get to know him more and see if she could help him. Morning, Roswace, Issei said, which made the Valkyrie smile before Issei asked about Rhea since she seemed to be out, which surprised him since he recalled the Gremory heiress being more of a night owl than a morning person. Rhea said she was going back home for a while since she was able to complete a month's worth of assignments as well as her senior thesis and work, so she wanted to go see her parents. Something about wanting to learn more under them, Roswace explained, which surprised Issei before shrugging it aside since he figured that Rhea's wanted to gain some advice on the upcoming battles, like how Zenobia and Asia were practicing for the upcoming war with the new Cao Cao and his army. Well, I hope Rhea enjoys herself and doesn't push herself too much since she will be graduating soon. Oh, and before I forget, how is Brandish? Issei asked before Roswace replied. Oh, she's actually excited for a new job and to see her intern join her at school, Roswace said before looking at the time and freaking out a bit. Oh no, I should get going, Roswace said before Issei calmed her down. Roswace, Issei said, grabbing her shoulders before pointing to the clock, which showed 6:30. I get you scared, but remember you can teleport to school, and you should have some food first before you have an anxiety attack. I appreciate you working strong, but you also need to take care of yourself first. The school will still be there, so don't be so stressed about running a bit late, Issei said in a kind voice, which made Roswace blush a bit as she was a bit furred by his voice. She also expressed how worried he was about her well-being before Roswace pushed him away and replied nervously. Well, you make a point, the Valkyrie said, not noticing Ravel's smirk and Urza's amazed expression before Roswace took some food and thanked them before teleporting to school, making Issei chuckle in response. Still the same as ever, Roswace, Issei said before sitting next to Ravel and pecked her cheek before clearing away the dishes, which made Ravel smile at Issei. Oh, thank you, my dragon husband, but I should get going too since I'll be getting some more training before I come to the academy in a few weeks, Ravel said before the two shared a final embrace until Ravel teleported away, leaving Urza and Issei in the kitchen. Urza was happy to be alone with Issei as the two then began to head out to school, which made Urza so happy. She enjoyed doing solo missions with Issei even before they became a couple back in Earthland. Issei also enjoyed walking with Urza but chuckled at her fascination with the new world around her since it was different from Earthland, which relied on magic for almost everything in day-to-day life. However, Urza needed some clarification, such as the traffic signals when waiting for the light to change. GRR, what is this foul contraption that forces us to wait? Ezra shouted as she summoned a sword and was about to destroy the traffic signal before the light changed to a walk sign, which calmed her down. But the trouble soon continued. Urza tried to help a lost child, but the child was more scared of Urza when she tried to make a funny face, which made him cry even louder. Fortunately, the mother soon found them and thanked them for helping her child before the duo left, which made Urza a bit happy but sad due to the child being afraid of her. Issei noticed Urza's mixed emotions and gently took her hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. Hey, it's all right. You're still adjusting to this world, and it can be not very clear sometimes. But you'll get the hang of it. Ezra looked up at him, her eyes softening with gratitude. Thank you, Issei. I'll do my best. As they continued their walk, Issei pointed out various landmarks and explained the customs and norms of the human world, helping Urza acclimate to her new environment. They eventually arrived at Kyo Academy, the imposing building standing as a testament to the blend of human and supernatural realms. "Welcome to your new school, Urza," Issei said with a smile. "Ready to make some new memories?" Ezra nodded, her determination renewed. "Yes, I'm ready." They entered the school, navigating the hallways filled with bustling students. Urza's presence drew curious glances, her striking red hair and confident demeanor making her stand out. The girls were captivated by her beauty while wondering why Issei was with her. As for the guys, they were jealous of Issei being around another beauty, but they quickly turned away after Issei glared at them to turn away from his wife. Eventually, the duo made their way to the faculty office, where Brandish was waiting. "Ah, there you two are," Brandish greeted them with a smile. "Ready for your first day, Ezra?" Ezra nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. "Yes, I'm ready to learn and do my best." Brandish handed her a schedule and some materials. "Great. You'll be shadowing me for the first week to get a feel for how things work here. Don't worry, you'll do fine," Brandish said before leaning into Urza and speaking to her quietly. "And if you do so well, I'll give you a treat during our break," Brandish said while drawing circles on Urza's stomach, making Urza blush at the atomic levels again since she remembered who she was with. The second most terrifying person loved to tease her and make her legs feel like jelly, but nothing like when Issei made her shiver in joy from just a touch. "No, Brandish. Save the teasing for later and don't be too rough on her," Issei said with a grin. "Huh?" Ezra asked as she was suddenly stuck in the middle of the two people who made her so red she could paint a person with her blush. "Oh, I take it she enjoyed her honeymoon then." "Oh, she most certainly did, especially since her cake was well frosted and served to perfection." "Oh, now I want to take a bite of it," Brandish said, making a small bite action, making Urza clap her hands over her rear to defend it against the nation destroyer. "Oh, I'm sure it's still delicious as it was yesterday, but don't spoil your dinner since I still have a wonderful meal for you tonight, Brandish," Issei said, making Brandish excited since she had been waiting for her fun with Issei and Urza as well as Ravel, but business before pleasure, as they say in the workplace. "Fair enough. Now get to class before I write you up," Brandish said before Issei chuckled but did so while waving goodbye to Urza, who was scared since she was now trapped alone with Brandish. Ura. "Ready for today's lesson, Urza, or should I teach you about the lesson today?" Brandish said as she was wearing a DMNTRX uniform along with a WHP in her hand, making Urza blush at the weapon before praying for her guild to lend her strength to survive this. "If this cow doesn't kill me, then Brandish, Issei, and Ravel will do it with their teasing," Urza shouted in her mind while scared but turned on by Brandish leaning into her ear and whispering. "Now, let's begin, shall we?" Ezra nodded dumbly as her rear was assaulted by the nation destroyer, who loved the marks that Issei gave to her before placing her mark on Urza to show she conquered the butt of the Dragon Knight. Issei was smiling as he looked at his phone before his old friend spoke to him. "Issei," Matsuda and Madohama shouted before Issei blocked the two and slammed their fists into each other's faces, causing them to yell in pain before yelling at him. "Why didn't you take your punishment?" "Yeah, this is what you get for ditching us for 3 months. Look, I'm sorry for being gone so long, but it's because I had family business to deal with, and I also did a bit of soul-searching, too," Issei said before continuing. "And it was very enlightening since I needed a change of pace from the norm to better myself." Matsuda and Madohama sighed before they left their jealous sides and replied, "Well, you should have still contacted us since we were worried about you." "Yeah, I mean, we're friends, aren't we?" Issei smiled at this since he really cared about his friends before patting their shoulders. "Well, I'm back, but enough about me. What's been going on with you guys since a little bird told me that you both finally got a girlfriend?" Issei asked before Matsuda smiled and replied, "Indeed, and it was actually Hace from our class." "Hace? Isn't she that shy girl you saved that one time from the stalker? The one and only." "Apparently, Hace has been trying to ask me out for a while, but since I was so busy hanging out with you guys, she never had the chance to speak to me. She was super shy, which I'm trying to help her with, but I don't know how," Matsuda said before Issei replied, "Why not take her to a place where both of you are comfortable? Maybe a nice trip to the park might be a good way to help you two break the ice since that's where I can feel at peace," Issei suggested before the perverted trio continued to talk about dating suggestions and the fact that Madohama was actually dating Eikakuryu. This made Issei win a bet he had with his bald friend that they'd get together since they had so much in common. The perverted trio continued chatting until the class began, and the day went by as usual. Still, the class was shocked by Issei's increased intellect since he was actually able to answer the questions in class and did an excellent job on a test and pop quiz today. Still, the class was surprised when Issei was physically stronger and able to beat even Matsuda, the most athletic person in their class. Later, during their lunch break, the trio, along with Eika and Hace, were at the rooftop where Issei was eating an extra-large bento, which shocked the group until Eika asked, "Okay, answer us seriously, Issei. What the hell happened to you?" Eika shouted in shock before Issei replied to her, 3 months and a spiritual awakening that helped me better myself. And then some, Matsuda said, still a bit sore from losing to Issei before his friend patted him on the back. "Hey, don't beat yourself up. I had to push myself to get this strong, and I know you can, too, if you put in the work," Issei said with a grin before the group chatted about Issei coming with Urza today. "So, what's the deal with Urza? Is she your new girlfriend or something?" And what's up with the orc girls? They seem to be a bit different, especially since Rias, Asia, and Zenobia asked for leave due to family reasons. Motohama asked before Issei replied with their cover story. Well, Rias has family reasons and some issues to deal with, so she had to go away for a month. As for Asia and Zenobia, Asia's BRTH parents may not have been part of her life, but they did leave her some money, so Asia is going to claim her inheritance. However, I'm just surprised they even remember they had a daughter since they didn't seem to give a sip ditching her as an infant. Issei growled a bit before saying that Zenobia went as moral support, which made sense to the group since the duo, along with Irina, were a good group of friends who looked out for each other. By the way, did you hear about the new fourth-year students that came in today? Ace asked shyly, looking away before Matsuda encouraged her to continue, which led to Issei learning that Vali, Demaria, and Kuroka were at the school. At the same time, Altair is the new school librarian, which made Issei smirk, knowing Altair would more likely enjoy reading than her work. After lunch, the group was surprised when they ran into Vali with Kuroka, Demaria, and Urza, which made Issei smile as he saw his rival, friends, and wife. Vali, Kuroka, Urza, Demaria, I'm so happy to see you three, Issei said, hugging them, making Vali blush a bit. He was embarrassed by the hug until the girls began to question what their relationship was, which made Demaria stifle her snickers. At the same time, Kuroka shook her head in amusement with a smile on her face, knowing Issei would enjoy this. Will you stop that, Issei? It's things like that make people think we're a thing, Vali said before Issei replied with a head tilt. Oh, come on. It's not that bad since you, Kuroka, and Demaria are dating. Besides, your Amazon girlfriends say they accept all parts of you, Issei said before Vali groaned, recalling Demaria and Kuroka being amused by his alter ego. I told you not to bring that up, Vali shouted back before Issei replied to him with an embarrassed expression. Please, Vali, control yourself. I'm just a defenseless teenager. Defenseless my butt, Vali shouted, hearing Pieces laugh in response to this since they were amused by their mama's reaction to Issei's reply, which made the girls around them shocked before their imaginations went wild, especially the manga club, as they began to write a new book. Will you stop saying stuff like that? We are not a thing. I never slept with him, Vali shouted to the girls, making them cringe, but it was the fuel that Issei needed to keep the fire going. Issei faked a blush, which made Demaria's grin widen because she was expecting what was to come as Issei spoke to Vali. But Vali, you didn't mind sharing that sleeping bag with me when you were cold that night. The girls blushed like tomatoes as their imaginations ran wild, and Urza thought of what her husband did with the White Dragon Emperor on some of their missions. Vali blushed and yelled back, that was because I didn't want to freeze to death from swimming, and you know it. Oh, and is that why you snuggled next to me and wrapped yourself around me? Issei asked with a teasing grin that made Vali groan. Kuroka did a spit take and struggled to breathe, while Demaria laughed while rolling the floor. Stop, Issei. You're going to kill me. Vali blushed as he looked away from Issei while Albion laughed his butt off. Issei is not my husband. Suffice it to say, it was an eventful ending to lunch, which made the students wonder what the heck happened to Issei after 3 months while he was gone. But let's see how the others are doing outside of Kyo Academy. Gremory Mansion. Rias was breathed heavily as she was taking a hiatus from an intense exercise session, the sweat glistening on her skin as she wiped her forehead. She had been pushing herself to her limits, determined to improve and ready herself for the upcoming battles. She wasn't alone, however. Standing across from her, with a composed yet focused expression, was her father, Xioticus Gremory. You've improved a lot, Rias, he said, his voice carrying a hint of pride. But remember, it's not just about power. Strategy and understanding your opponents are just as crucial. Rias nodded, taking a deep breath to steady herself. I understand, father. I want to be ready for whatever comes next. We can't afford to be complacent, especially if Cao Cao really has turned his army of humans into demons now. Xioticus smiled, placing a hand on her shoulder. And you will be. But don't forget to take care of yourself too. Balance is key, as well as understanding your limitations. Rias returned the smile, feeling a sense of reassurance. Her father's support meant a lot to her, and she was determined to live up to the expectations placed upon her. The Gremory heiress then headed to her room where she was staying. She wiped sweat on her forehead before looking at her palm and summoning an orb of her magic. Still, it seemed difficult to control before she let the orb dissipate, which made her collapse on her bed. Damn it, I still can't get it to hold, Rias muttered while cursing her pride for being her glaring weakness since she was trying to form a concentrated of the power of destruction to throw at her enemies before it exploded, similar to a time bomb. Still, sadly, she could only hold it for a few seconds, unlike her brother, who could do it like it was child's play. Don't stress about it so much, Rias. I know that you are trying to get to Issei's level, but we haven't even seen him at his full strength. I guess that he might be as powerful as the Super Mao forms your brother and Beelzebub-sama have in their arsenal, Aquino said, glad that she came during her free PRD at school to check up on Rias's well-being. I know, Aquino, but Ravel was right about me, Rias said, taking a sip of her water before downing the rest of it. I've been hoping that the old Issei that I knew would be part of our group again and wishing that maybe our relationship could continue, but now that Issei's back, he's not only changed but matured. It's like he became more of a king while I was stuck in the back just watching him grow into such an individual who was able to perform such amazing feats. Akino listened while understanding Riz's anger at herself, which made Akino look at her left hand before summoning some lightning, which made her recall how she despised the magic that she inherited from her father. Still, looking back on it, Akino realized that she was a stubborn person like her friend and understood why both of them were the same. Stubborn girls have so much power but waste their talents due to their lack of longing and their past to accept their powers and train to become truly stronger. Well, after your break, why don't we have a spar? Akino asked, making Riz look at her in surprise before smiling at her best friend and hugging her. Thanks, Akino. That's what friends are for, and perhaps you'll impress Issei that you two can repair your relationship, Akino said while Riz pouted at her friend. You're just saying that since he took you on a date, as well as Asia, Irina, and Zenobia, Riz said before Akino giggled at her expression. Riz then looked at the training ground and readied herself for more training. I promised to improve myself for not just Issei to prove Ravel wrong but also to prove to myself that I'm not going to be that same person anymore. Riz shouted in her head, firing herself up and punching her fists together as her aura radiated on her body. I have a month until I have to go back home, so let's get back to work, Riz said before looking at the last day marked on her calendar, which was marked in red. Challenge Issei to battle. And it's not just Riz getting some more training but also Zenobia and Asia. Ugh, Asia grunted as she flew back and hit the wall while Afyacha sighed at the nun's attempt to fight her with Durandal. Is that all you're really capable of, little girl? At this rate, you won't even make me take this seriously, Afyacha said while yawning and resting on a floating bed of shadows, which annoyed Asia when she got out of the wall. Asia dusted herself off, her eyes narrowing with determination. She tightened her grip on Durandal, feeling the weight and power of the sacred sword. Asia isn't yet ready for Durandal, which made her, but still, she understands since the sword is testing her worthiness. Unlike Zenobia, Asia is a caster and support who relies on her partner Rasei to fight for her in battle, but not anymore. Don't underestimate me, Asia declared, her voice steady. She yelled before charging at Afyacha again, SWNG Durandal with all her might. The blade glowed with a brilliant light, cutting through the darkness. Afyacha effortlessly dodged the attack, her movements fluid and graceful like a snake. She FLC at her wrist, and tendrils of shadow snaked toward Asia, aiming to trap her. Asia anticipated the move and leaped into the air, avoiding the shadows. She spun in midair, bringing Durandal down in a powerful arc. The sword sliced through the shadows, dissipating them into nothingness. Impressive, Afyacha admitted, a hint of amusement in her voice. But you'll need more than that to defeat me. Meanwhile, Zenobia was utilizing her new abilities as a bishop. She stood back, supporting Asia with powerful magical spells. It made her sweat quite a bit since she didn't even realize how little her magic reserves were, which made her envy Asia a bit. She couldn't imagine how draining using Twilight Healing was for her being. Grisela was surprised by Zenobia's class change from a knight to a bishop, but the exorcist still supported her daughter's choices. Gabriel was able to help Zenobia better understand magic, help the former knight learn light spells, and inform her of her unique magic that was currently locked within her being. Zenobia was grateful for Gabriel helping her. Her hands glowed with a bright, holy light as she chanted incantations, summoning barriers and enhancing Asia's attacks. Divine Shield. Divine Reinforcement, Zenobia shouted, creating a shield around Asia to protect her from Afyacha's shadow hands that slammed into the said barrier before being repelled. The barrier shimmered, its holy energy fading while it kept the dark tendrils away from it. Asia nodded in gratitude, feeling a surge of strength from Zenobia's support. She charged at Afyacha again, her movements faster and more precise, bolstered by Zenobia's magic. Afyacha frowned, realizing the growing synergy between the two. She summoned a wave of shadows, attempting to overwhelm the barrier and strike at both girls. Zenobia's eyes glowed with determination. Not so fast. Oh, bless Gabriel. Bless us with your protection as we repel the darkness with you, divine light. Zenobia yelled as she unleashed a burst of divine energy, dispersing the shadows and creating an opening for Asia. Taking advantage of the opening, Asia pressed her assault, her sword glowing with divine power. Afyacha found herself on the defensive, forced to take their attacks seriously. Not bad, Afyacha conceded, a glint of respect in her eyes. But let's see if you can keep up. The battle raged on, the clash of swords and the crackle of energy filling the air. Asia and Zenobia fought with everything they had, determined to prove their strength and protect their friends. In a separate training arena, Riaz observed her friends' battles, glad that she let Asia and Zenobia train with her at the Gremory Mansion with Issei's third familiar, a mixture of concern and pride in her eyes. Riaz knew they were strong, but Afyacha was proving to be a formidable opponent. They needed to find a way to break through her defenses and turn the tide of the battle. Asia and Zenobia exchanged a glance, a silent agreement passing between them. They had to work together if they were going to stand a chance. With renewed determination, Asia charged at Afyacha's head-on while Zenobia chanted another spell, summoning holy chains that wrapped around Afyacha, attempting to restrain her. Afyacha raised an eyebrow, slightly surprised by their teamwork. She conjured a barrier of shadows to block their attacks, but the combined force of Durandal and Zenovia's holy magic shattered it, sending ripples of energy through the air. Taking advantage of the opening, Asia and Zenovia pressed their assault, their attacks perfectly synchronized. Ophiuchus found herself on the defensive, her earlier confidence waning. Divine Judgment. Zenovia cast another powerful spell, sending a beam of holy light toward Ophiuchus from the sky above, forcing her to dodge and giving Asia a chance to close in. Asia swung Durandal with all her might, the sword blazing with divine power. Ophiuchus barely managed to block the attack, her shadowy form FLC curring under the intense light. Riaz watched, her heart swelling with pride. They were strong, and together they were unstoppable. She knew they would find a way to defeat Ophiuchus and emerge victorious. Oh, now that was impressive, Ophiuchus said with a chuckle before the smoke cleared to reveal her human form was fine except for her arms that were burned severely, which shocked both Asia and Zenovia before seeing the wounds heal completely. I'll admit that if I were still my weaker self, then I probably would have been in worse condition than a couple of burns, but thanks to my MSDR's training, Ophiuchus said while cracking her neck, which scared the duo before her human form began to twitch and bend in inhumane ways until her mouth extended beyond human comprehension as a massive snake emerged from her human body, which made the two freeze in fear before the snake spoke to them. What do you say? Round 2.